Alright. How's it going, everyone? Welcome. Welcome back to Chill Reading. Hey. Hey, Skello. Hey, Corin. Any on the cartoon? Hey, Sky. Hey, Sunny. Hey, the Joker. Chaos Melon. Hey, Skello. Captain Scurvy. Hey, Beware Dakota Flare. Hey, Rusty. Hey, Corin. Hey, Loris. Hey, IC. Hey, Izzy the Fae. Hey, Amplu. Hey, Sar. Hey, Neon Crow. Hey, Soren. Hey, Turtle King. Hey, Fuzzy Goat. Welcome, everyone, to a very special episode of the Chill Reading series. Some of you may have gotten used to the past few episodes where I just started reading dumb Reddit stories and had to control my laughter. And while I do enjoy those streams, hey Gaka, how's it going? I also feel like that kind of got away from the spirit of chill reading. So for this episode, we are actually going to be chill, and we are going to be reading an actual theory post that I'm very interested in going through with you guys. Hey Leslie, thank you for the 3 months. 3 months and 3 days until Deltarune. 3 days. Well, no, it's 3 days and 21 hours. We're still 4. It's still a good number. 4 days. 3 days, 21 hours, 40 minutes, and 6 seconds specifically. I know that is very autistically specific, but, you know, I am frothing at the mouth to be able to play that game. Hey Luke Nukem, thank you for the $10. I have a personal liking for vessel theories. Also, I gotta ask, am I the only one who sees some similarities between Deltarune and Persona 3? No, you do not. In fact, a lot of the themes of Deltarune are kind of shared with Persona, specifically using escapism and using fantastical situations in order to bond with other people in your life. Though I feel like it's more consistent with Persona 4's plot, but that's just more because I'm more familiar with Persona 4 than Persona 3, you know? Hey Fuzzy Goat. Chill, yeah sure buddy. You know this is gonna be a chill stream. Once again, the entire purpose of these streams is for you to hear me out, to chill with me here, to use this as background noise for any art that you may be working on, for you to sleep to, or for any other situation in which you just want to put on a background noise and relax. Roxa Savity donates, has been a member for 16 months and says, watching Azazel stream, but have this funny little membership, might stop by later. Hell yeah, thank you. Hey Phil, missed the lore stream, so this will be a great refresher of what I don't know. Though I don't know much, I'll refrain while I'm hell diving. Also, Ralsei is the best boy and would never be evil. I agree. Totally agree over there. Thank you Some Fox for the $2. Hey Phil, love your streams, man. You're my inspiration for YouTube. Take care, man. Also, Deltarune tomorrow ×4. I know that I've been very autistically aggressive about my passion and my interest for Deltarune's release. I can't really be that way while I'm, doing chill reading though, but you can assume that I'm still boiling with excitement. It's just that I have to contain the autism just a little bit so I can keep the theme of this series, somewhat consistent. Also, you may be hearing some weird noises in the background while I do this. Please ignore those. Azazel is currently in the other room, streaming Undertale for the first time in her life, which is very interesting. I was there for the first hour of the ruins to help her out with the game, and after I am done with this stream, you will be able to find me in her stream on her channel, helping her out with the final area. I think it's going to be either Waterfall or Hotland, it depends on how much farther she goes while I'm doing this. Boo says, you're currently shaking your legs around to express your excitement. Oh yeah, I can just imagine, like, bartender, like, Fi, just, like, trying to be as chill as possible, meanwhile the other bottom half of her body is just, like, wiggling, like jelly. Something like that. Hey, Sora Cloud, thank you for the $5. This is the first chill reading stream that I'm witnessing live. The only one I've watched so far is the SCP one. I wonder if you will stay relaxed or lose your mind to the brain rot. I'll try to be an adult about it. I'll try my best to just provide a chill voice that people can listen to, and maybe get some Deltarune brain rot out of their own brains by listening to some theories live. Hey Lambda, thank you for the super chat. Saw your comment under BAG Twitter post. If you ever got picked and your character was to die, play as B while recording so we can get the most accurate sounds of agony. Oh, that's a perfect idea. Hell yeah. Thank you, Captain Scurvy, for the 14 months. Had a dream where Chris gained access to debug mode. Their mind would absolutely explode if that had to happen. Thank you, Mr. Shu, for the 6 months. Perfect strength to pass the queue times for DBD too. Are you one of those people that got into Dead by Daylight after Springtrap released? Show of hands. Anyone on the membership on the chat right now? Did you try out Dead by Daylight just because Springtrap was there, or were you a player before? Be honest here. Sans Eyes says, I don't know when or how, but I somehow now have a membership for 3 different YouTube channels, and I've only realized it this morning. That happens because a lot of, like, generous people give out free gifted memberships, and, like, if you're active at all on the chat, you're eligible for a free gifted membership for these kinds of streams. Hey Microcat, thank you for the $5. I think he might be the original Starwalker. Hey fan YouTubers, thank you for the super chat. Hey Blue Mask, that's how Chris becomes a secret boss. Oh, by getting access to the debug menu. Turtle King says, I still haven't played it. Rusty says, I've played DBD before with my friends. Octojoker says, I played in preparation for Springtrap, and I will continue to play. Well, good luck on that. I'm not really into Dead by Daylight, so it's not like you're gonna be getting a stream out of me of playing against Springtrap or something. I'm sorry. I'm way too focused on Deltarune right now to think about any other type of game. Hey Winterer, time to chill while thinking about Oblivion. So, I guess with that comment, I might as well explain what this stream is going to be about. So, Deltarune is obviously host of a lot of different theories out there, as you may know. A lot of YouTube content about Deltarune is about Deltarune theories. However, there are some people that like to take a moment and make like Google documents or like big Twitter posts to share their theories because they're not YouTubers. One of these people is Wandydoodles, that I've been following for a while, and who's made some really cool theories on Twitter that I've really liked. If you have been active on Twitter for the upcoming release of Deltarune, maybe you have seen the Cat Mike RNG theory, which explains who Mike is and ties Mike's existence with the RNG aspect of Deltarune as a whole, and also to, what do you call these? The Cat Petters RPG that Noel played, that talked about in the blog for Spamton Sweepstakes. Well, Wandydoodles is also famous in the Deltarune community for what we are calling the Oblivion Theory. The Oblivion Theory is a little Google docie that Wandydoodles has pinned on his Twitter, like, bio on Twitter account, and it has around 162 pages of content. Apparently it was longer before, but he has managed to cut it all down to like 162 pages. And because I'm really interested in this theory, because I've heard some of the details about it, but I have not read the full thing, I want to use chill reading as a way to show people the theory, see what it's all about, get into the details of it, and maybe also give out my own thoughts as I'm reading this. Winter says, this is the Deltarune theory Bible right here. 162 pages is pretty goddamn long. Like, I think though that we're actually gonna have a lot to talk about though, because I don't think that this is fluff. I think that the thing that I like about Wandy Doodles' theories is that he takes like everything into account. From the tiniest little details and scraps of dialogue the characters give you to like the overall themes of the story, everything is accounted for whatever theory or thought Wandy Doodles wants to post on Twitter. So I reached out to Wandy and asked him for permission to read this out to you guys and have like a live discussion about the Oblivion Theory. I think last time that I heard about the Oblivion Theory, it was like in a giant like post / like form, like a Google form, to give get people's thoughts on theories, and the Oblivion Theory was so long that I didn't actually bother to read what it was all about. Now I get to correct that mistake and actually properly read it out to you guys. Chris Clear donates $5 and says, been replaying Deltarune with friends voicing, but we are convinced there will be a Megalovania Susie. There is a YouTube song for it that's peak. I have definitely heard it. I'm also a believer of Megalovania Susie, though I think that will be reserved for the weird routes. It won't be, like, in the main route, though you will probably still fight Susie, or at least Chris will fight Susie, whenever she learns that her friendship with Chris was built upon the player interacting with Susie. I am a full believer that Susie will have a massive crash out, like maybe around chapter 6 or chapter 7, you know? Skello says, I've never heard of this theory before until this week from what I remember, so I'm quite interested to know what's going on. Well, might as well get right into it, right? Dr. Joker, also Phil, have you heard that Toby has confirmed in an interview that no Homestuck music will be used in Deltarune at all? Yes, I have heard of that, but fuck you, I think that's a lie. Well, not really a lie, it's more like, legally, he can't just say, yeah, no, we're putting Homestuck stuff in our game, but at the same time, using motifs is not just straight up ripping a song off and putting it in the game. Like, Toby likes to take motifs and leitmotifs and use it in his projects. He references a lot of stuff from other different pieces of media. I fully believe that whatever song he may have cooked up before the release of Undertale is probably going to be reused in some manner in Deltarune. So, I don't fully think that Penumbra Phantasm is dead, as some people might say. Maybe I am coping, I don't know, maybe I'm super coping, who knows? But I personally believe that technically, no Homestuck songs will be used in Deltarune, but motifs from those songs that Toby composed will appear in some capacity. We'll have to see though. Penumbra Phantasm was used at the end of Undertale anyway, like in the fight with Asriel for Hopes and Dreams. By the way, don't say that to Azazel, she's currently streaming Undertale right now and doesn't know anything about the True Pacifist run. But anyway. I mean, Mettaton's theme originated from a comic theme. Yeah, Blue Mask. There's a bunch of stuff that Toby reuses for his games because he loves to reuse motifs and like play around with them and change them and adjust them. So I fully believe that no, legally, no Homestuck songs will be in Deltarune, but there will be a lot of allusions and motifs reused from that era of Toby's work. Mr. Shu says, I am such a Penumbra head, I really hope you're right, especially because Penumbra is in the Dark Fountain theme. I know, right? After someone, like, told me what Penumbra Phantasm was, I had to watch, like, multiple videos about what Penumbra Phantasm was about, and I just fell into, like, a rabbit hole for, like, a month. It was awesome. Winter says, Nightmare Night Melody is already literally in the game. Yeah, exactly. Ace Drawing says, there's a difference between straight up using other music in your own production and using motifs in your own music. Exactly. Oh yeah, speaking of which, might as well reveal this now since we are in the topic of that. Tomorrow, I have a very special thing to reveal to you guys. You know how the intro song for the Toxic Cesspit was composed by my friend Lyra? It is called Toxic Breakdown, and I think that you guys love it because when I started off the season, I debuted it at the start of the stream, and you guys were in love. Like, I didn't see a single person that saying that they missed the old themes, so I was very happy about that. Well, I thought about it and said, well, if people really love Toxic Breakdown, and if they love the intro theme of the Toxic Cesspit, why not continue it and hire other musicians for more original tracks for the streams? You know what I mean? I don't want to replace Toxic Breakdown. In fact, it will remain as the intro theme for the foreseeable future. But what about in the Hangout portions of the streams? What about moments where I want to just chill with people and talk to them? I still need to, like, use YouTube clips and YouTube chill mixes to be able to do that. So I decided that I would talk to a musician and commission them for a chill background track. So, since Deltarune is on my mind, I decided to contact the Winterer, who's on the chat, by the way. She's right there on the chat. Been talking to her for a while, and for like around a month, we've been working on a new song for the Toxic Cesspit that will be debuting tomorrow. And the intro portion of the stream, it will not be in the intro portion all the time. It will just be a showcase of Win's work. And then, from now on, you will be able to hear a fully original Hangout song for the Hangout portions of the streams. So you will have Toxic Breakdown in the intro, and then you will have this other song that will be appearing in the Hangout portions of every stream from now on. I really like the song. It's very chill. It's very long so that it doesn't become repetitive. And there's a bunch of motif references and like funny little moments that I really like Win sneaking in there. Especially appropriate for this time as well, like for Delta Week. I'm very happy with Win's work, so hope you guys will like it as well. That will happen tomorrow, not today. I love working with artists, like, even outside the Toxic Cesspit, as long as, like, they contribute and enjoy something for the streams. Like, I love to reach out to, like, different artists, like, every time and have them contribute work and have, like, a little, like, everything in the Toxic Cesspit is made by different artists. You have backgrounds by Azazel, by Bonzi, you have different models by Ashers, by Sora, by Accidente. You have the main Toxic theme, Toxic Breakdown by Lyra. Now we'll have another by, like, Winterer. Like, I love how, like, everything made in the Toxic Cesspit is just, like, this mishmash of different artists' visions and stuff. It's like, it feels like a real, like, a group, like a fucking school project, if you know what I mean. I like it. Anyway, that will be tomorrow, though. because right now I want to focus on chill reading. So, let's get right on that. We will be starting our reading of Deltarune, the Oblivion Theory. For those that joined in and skipped out to this part from the chapters on the VOD, welcome. This is going to be a long boy. This theory is around 162 pages long, made by WandyDoodles on Twitter. I asked them for permission, so no issues with that. I will be reading this out to you guys, and then I will take some pauses here and there to give my thoughts on the material, and maybe read out what people think about in the chat. But once again, this is all made for you to put on the background and just use as background noise while you're drawing, or sleeping, or chilling out. So, if you don't want to comment and just want to use this to relax, be my guest. Let's start. The Oblivion Theory for Deltarune is an in-depth analysis of Deltarune written by @WandyDoodles, with the help of my boyfriend, which tries to analyze what the game is about in its entirety. It covers everything there is to know about the meta-narrative of this series, what the themes of the games are, why they were made in the first place, and what the game wants to leave you with. Due to it being a theory about the nature of the game as a whole, it won't cover in depth every single character, but more in general what connects all of them into the story and why they were written the way that they are. It's mostly an analysis more than a theory, to be honest, hence why it's so long, but it does have a full speculative side. Though, as a warning, I won't talk about things like Des or Chris's past, because otherwise it would become unnecessarily long. The idea is to ask all those sort of big, main questions regarding the nature of the story, and attempt to explain them. What are Dark Worlds? Why does Chris rebel against us? What does Gaster have to do with the story? What is the game actually trying to convey? This theory used to be contained in a very long document. However, I decided to make a new one for multiple reasons. Not only was that document too chaotic, but also it was made when I was a minor who knows nothing about the world. As a result of that, and English not being my first language, it was explained in a way that didn't appear simple for everyone and lacked a sense of order. It was a mess. With this shorter document, I am confident I was able to summarize everything regarding the theory in a way that everyone can understand. Or maybe I didn't. Feel free to break my heart and tell me if that's the case. Don't worry. I will. I'm brutally honest. But before diving into Deltarune, let's talk about Undertale. Chapter 1. What is Undertale's meta-narrative about? And why does it matter? What Undertale describes as doing things to see what happens is simply a cooler in-universe way to explain reward systems in games. In case you're not familiar with the term, games work in such a way that unlike in a movie or a book or other forms of media, your own actions are actively rewarded with something. Rewards can vary from countless forms. It can be weapons, items, new cutscenes or dialogues, secret bosses, new fights, literally anything in-game. The absolute, widely recognized symbol of rewards in games is numbers. Numbers in games aren't things you increase randomly, but they are rewards, or rather, symbols of rewards. Obviously, not every single action is rewarded with numbers, but most of them are, which is why they're a thing that represents how much of the game you've seen. The more you play, the stronger your character is. Let's say you're playing a cooking game, and you receive a number of points for any plate that you do. Your restaurant will start at level 1, but as you keep making better upgrades for your customers, eventually you'll have enough numbers to get an upgrade and reach level 2. This next level unlocks new things to see, things that you couldn't previously do, and will bring you much more points than before, which eventually you'll use to reach level 3 and get even more rewards. This process is called progression, and it's an essential piece of any game design. So, what is Undertale doing with it? Well, each time a number increases, a level of dopamine is released in the brain of the player. This is caused by the combination of two things. Curiosity. If I tell you that at each new level you unlock something new, of course you're going to be curious and eager to reach that. Often becoming impatient. A player who's not curious enough to grind for the secret 99 attack weapon won't be as strong as a player who focuses on other parts of the game. Number 2. Satisfaction. Getting a reward for your actions, regardless of what it is, feels good. It makes you feel accomplished, and you always want more of it as your curiosity becomes stronger. In turn, numbers are addictive. You can find countless websites talking about this. Many of them are much older than Undertale itself. If you've ever played mobile games as a kid, it's likely at least once you found yourself playing for hours on some shitty levels made as a scam. You may have realized while playing that the game itself isn't even that fun. You're not even playing something of high quality, but the singular existence of progression and knowing you can keep getting stronger and unlock newer and newer things is enough to keep your eyes stuck on the screen for hours. We could spend time studying what exactly causes this addictive nature in reward systems, but that's not the point here. When making a game, you always have to keep in mind an important question. What does someone get out of playing this? What does your game give to people? To this question, usually, many answers come out of it. There are extrinsic rewards, intrinsic rewards, and many possible progression systems built with it. For the purpose of Undertale's message and design, though, we're going to divide the game's purpose and rewards into two. Number 1. A short-term reward. This refers to anything we've mentioned so far. All of the physical and quantitative rewards of the game. Numbers, progressions, rewards of any kind. It's all that fun that you get from treating the game as a toy. Until eventually, it starts not having fresh things to show you anymore, and it becomes boring. This is especially visible in offline games, but online games work the same way. Playing Smash Bros. For the first time won't feel nearly the same as the 200th time. These are also called extrinsic rewards. Number 2. A long-term reward. This instead refers to all those rewards that aren't inside the game, but untouchable. Memories you make during the game's short-term fun, an attachment to the characters, satisfaction from finally defeating a hard fight, the friends you've made along the way, so to speak. A game about depression can help people with depression feel seen. This reward from the experience exists outside the game, and all that short-term fun it contains as it is, instead, something you carry with you for a long time. The issue is that if you play or make a game focused only on the short-term reward, the game is nothing more than that. The characters are nothing more than toys, and playing it loses meaning once you already know what happens. It turns games into dolls to play with for a while and then throw away in the garbage when they get broken, and buy the newest, much cooler doll that can shoot lasers now. But games can be so much more than that. Undertale, in its entirety, is built around this concept. The characters are meta, quote-unquote, because this is meant to be a game that behaves like a world. Stuff like save files, resets, heck, even literal shop interfaces. They're all part of the main narrative and world building of the game, as elements that the characters can interact with. It's not a world that works like a game, it's more like a game that works like a world, where the gameplay elements and mechanics are more than just a robotic set of codes, but exist as embodiments of what they mean emotionally and philosophically. A lot of Undertale is about trying to explain parts of a video game in a way that doesn't just reek of, well, games. Determination is the most important example, being your dreams and wishes towards the game's world that manifest into the player's literal power to save their game. And the strength of your determination will determine, pun intended, how far you're willing to go to reach your goal. If you'll keep trying to reach your hopes and dreams, or give up on that determination, which means that you would quit the game. Everything in the design of this game is a fight between the short-term reward of the game and the long-term one. Normally, these two things can coexist in a game, but here you have the option to play this RPG as anything but an RPG. You don't have to kill the monsters to get the rewards. You can spare them, dance with them, talk with them, hear their troubles. You can treat every little part of the game not as a meaningless short-term diversion, but as individuals. Does this have any merit? Any benefit? Well, it's up to you to answer that. In an excerpt of Toby talking about why he made the game, Toby Fox says, "Undertale as a game is the result of the imagination that answers these sorts of questions. It's a world where you can overcome incredibly stubborn monsters by empathizing with them and treating them kindly. If the monsters were to listen to your voice, such fantasies are allowed, so to speak. It's an ideal game, but it's a weird game in its own way. After all, making a game where you attack or defeat something is easier, provides a sense of accomplishment, and is enjoyable in its own way for the player. The reason why no one has made a game that directly copies Undertale in these past 8 years is probably because of these reasons. And the fact that you ended up enthusiastically playing various games again is probably for that reason. Some people are okay with choosing more short-term fun over a long-term reward. Killing everyone to see what happens, treating them purely as toys, and forever giving up their freedom from their RPG character role. Meanwhile, some others refuse to play the genocide route in order to keep the characters happy, and receive a reward that isn't physical, but spiritual. The tenderness in your heart of knowing the characters are happy because of you, being able to imagine them living on the surface outside the game. To the creator, that reward is more valuable than any amount of additional physical content that you could ever get. You will decide their fate. In this game, curiosity can be about kindness and empathy, driving you to help these characters, be happy and understand them, and not just the kind of curiosity that pushes you to increase the numbers to unlock new content. When I say every design element of the game is built around this, I'm not exaggerating, by the way. Humans and monsters The game revolves around these two species because humans and monsters are usually the two races in JRPGs, with the humans being the legendary heroes who beat up the bad guys, which is really just an excuse for you to have fun playing. In this game, humans are the bad guys, and monsters are just misunderstood creatures who would gladly be their friends if only someone listened to them. Pacifism and genocide. The route where you treat the game as a living world against the route where you treat the game as nothing but an RPG. In one, you never increase any levels. In the other, you increase it till its max limit is possible. The barrier is a representation of what keeps the monsters in the game, and it breaks when you treat them as real people instead of dolls. Asriel and Flowey. The kind, compassionate boy who loves everyone as people against the soulless flower who only loves people for the short-term enjoyment they give and is incapable of building long-term sentimentality, seeing them as nothing but toys. Love and level of violence. This is perhaps the most direct one, as it's quite literally two different kinds of rewards. LVs are called love due to how fun it is to increase them, but by not doing it and resisting that curiosity, you get something more important than numbers. Frisk and Kara. If you treat the game as an individual, your nameless character previously only referred to as you finally gains a real name to show you that they aren't the RPG character that the game expects you to be, because you're not treating the game as a simple RPG after all. Thus leads to the human's identity shaping into their own person rather than the character you named at the start of the game. All while Flowey begs you to let them go and live their life as a person. Oppositely, if you treat the game only for its RPG value, Frisk gets slowly replaced by your name, your true RPG character, which you named at the start. So, what is Kara? What is name? Kara is an embodiment of the addictive feeling of progression which we talked about. A mistake I often see being done regarding them is people saying that they're a kind of player. This isn't exactly true. Flowey has that role. Kara is not a player, because as they say themselves, they're under your guidance. They are your character, not a player. We've talked about how addictive increasing numbers can be. Well, an addiction is a process in the human brain where a feeling or need for something takes control of an individual's brain more and more, pushing one to do things in an impulsive manner. You feel like you have to do something and just can't resist it. This is, by definition, incredibly similar to what a demon does. Throughout history and media, demons are very often connected to addictive feelings, and in more religious terms, temptation. Bringing souls to sin by tempting them and slowly devouring those souls as the individual falls for temptation more and more. The original sin was, for example, Satan tempting Eve to eat the apple. And in short, this is what Kara's role is throughout the game. They exist as a feeling with you throughout any route, because it's not like you don't get physical rewards ever. Neutrals are a thing. Whenever you increase your character's stats and become stronger for it, that's where they exist. However, when you increase numbers to their absolute limit, they start taking control. As Flowey says, they start stealing your soul and, in a classic demon temptation trope, move your character without your inputs in a creepy manner. Replace normal game narration and see themselves in reflections. And guys, this is, in the simplest way possible, a reflection of what's going on in your own behavior towards Undertale if you're playing Genocide. The addictive feeling of RPG progression is now pushing you to do things against your will. Heck, there's people crying as they kill Papyrus, but being forced to keep going because they just have to see what they'll get for it. They're literally being controlled by that curiosity. And this is represented artistically in the game, as their true RPG character slowly controlling them as a demon. Kara doesn't choose what you do. You choose what you do. But because they embody the feeling that pushes you to do it, they slowly take control. Hence, the infamous line, "Since when were you the one in control?" Notice how it's the same thing that happened with Azrael anyway, where they were controlling him, pushing him to kill the humans and get power, and he was the one to resist and not to do it. Kara is related to killing purely because that tends to be how you increase numbers in RPGs. If the way to increase them was making sandwiches, then they'd be there saying something like, "Just keep cooking, lol." Meanwhile, you're there with red eyes and just want to go to bed, but you can't close the screen because of how rewarding it is to kill monsters. It's kind of silly when I see people fighting about their morality. They're clearly soulless during the game, but being evil is not the point of their character anyway. Kara's focus is the answer to the question, what could bring an RPG protagonist to want to increase their stats and gain power? Since it's implied Kara felt powerless for most of their life due to the humans not treating them well. Not even just kills, by the way. For instance, Kara mentions gold in their speech. You increase gold in every route by doing actions to see certain things. That is still Kara. The concept of becoming stronger is more than just a physical strength. It's not a feeling that exists only in the genocide route. This route is just when this feeling becomes too much for Undertale's world to handle. We've said Undertale is a game that works like a world. Well, here you are, annihilating that second part. The world dies, and only the RPG part remains. Take a look at this interaction/quest in the normal routes.
Hello, I am a snowman. I want to see the world, but I cannot move. If you would be so kind, traveler, please, take a piece of me and bring it very far away. This is the snowman that you find in Snowdin at the beginning of Undertale. At the end, when you get to the neutral end of the route with the piece of snow in your hands, Sans makes sure to tell you, you made a snowman really happy. And now compare it to the genocide routes. Hello, I'm a snowman. I cannot move. Traveler, if you could.
You got the snowman piece.
Oh me, oh my, what are you doing? Soon there won't be any of me left.
You took another snowman piece.
Stop, please.
You got the snowman piece. Now it's just a useless pile of snow. In the route where you treat the game as a world, you listen to the snowman and choose to help them or not. In the route where you treat the game as only an RPG, the snowman is not an individual, but a healing item. Your character doesn't even allow them to finish their sentence. They ignore whatever they're saying and take a piece. And then another. And then another. Until it has nothing left to offer them, making it a useless pile of snow. The general point is that in this game, like any game with numbers, increasing them unlocks new things. You even get 2 incredibly cool fights for it. Kara has a highly self-referential part of the narrative because they embody something within you. They're always with you through whatever game you play. Toby refuses to make merch of them, saying that they're not something you can buy in a store. They define themselves as the demon that comes when people call its name, because that's what happens at the start of most games. You name your character. and call their name. And from that moment forward, the demon appears, and your own character starts tempting you into the addictive quality of progression in video games. The thing about reward systems is that they are not real. You don't become better in real life, only your character does. It's why it's called short-term in the first place. These rewards stop existing when the PC is closed and you're back to reality. It turns games almost into work sometimes, having to go through hours and hours of boring grind just to have that additional fun reward you were looking for, and getting impatient while doing so, focusing too much on these risk-making games. Pointless once they're over, like the snowman. And it's here that the next world bit comes in. Kara asks you to play you two to go play something else, because this game is over. It is now pointless to play for them. There is nothing left for you here. It's why Toby sees Megalovania as the music embodying the absolute end of the game, why Sans tells you that soon there will be nothing left for you to see, and why Kara is so connected to the number 9, the highest possible single digit, and the cap for most stats in games. To them, this world is useless crap outside of that short-term fun it just gave you, outside of power. But to many of us, Undertale is more than that. Let us erase this world and move on to the next. This is where the subject of the soulless route comes in. After the game is over, Kara was supposed to delete it from your PC entirely, and you had to manually install it back before finding yourself in the Abyss dialogue. The game has barely anything left for you, especially since the route is built mainly assuming that you've already played the main one, but you cannot accept that. You are not able to accept that it's all over, that the game is nothing more than a toy, that now has to be replaced with another world, because you love Undertale, in a way that soulless beings like Kara or Flowey struggle to fully comprehend. In order to get the game back, you have to give your soul to Kara. This, of course, is a classic deal with the devil trope, but the point behind it is incredibly symbolic. Nothing much changes in the game itself, except for the pacifist ending. Remember what that ending, what Frisk represented? The long-term reward, the character's freedom from the underground, but as a clear metaphor for the game, because you treated them as individuals instead of toys. They're allowed to be more than that, to get out of the Undertale, to do things we would do in our world, and do silly human jobs. The nameless RPG protagonist is allowed to be Frisk, and these characters and your bond with them will live forever in you. But if you played Genocide, you didn't actually treat them as individuals at all. You've had your choice. You had your moment to keep that long-term irreplaceable value. You had the moment every single second throughout the Genocide route to stop. But you didn't. You chose the short-term reward of the game in exchange for that memory of perfect bliss, and your experience is forever affected by it. You can change all the files you want, but you can't erase from your head the knowledge of what you did. Hence why Kara replaces Frisk in the end, and you get the unsettling picture of all the characters crossed out in red. You chose a short-term reward, diversion, over your bond with these characters. What Undertale is trying to say here is that if you were truly only like Flowey or Kara, and you didn't care about any of these characters outside of the entertainment they give you, this wouldn't be affecting you. In fact, you wouldn't even be here, delusionally being unable to accept that the game is over. You would already be to the next world, without caring about the characters as people. And well, some people don't. Some people genuinely don't feel bad. Some other people feel bad but are perfectly capable of understanding the consequences of their actions, and that the game has nothing left for them, so it's easier to just move on. But to many, it isn't. It was you who pushed everything to its edge, but you cannot accept it. You know when you replay your favorite RPG 50 times despite knowing the dialogues by heart, and at some specific moment you space out and ask yourself, what is the point of doing it if you know well what will happen? And you struggle to explain why you can't stop replaying it. In a certain sense, it's easy to just say, because it's my favorite game. But it's not that simple. Because playing it doesn't really actually feel like the first time you did. At all. This is because that fun from the rewards and progression have been sucked out. And yet, there you are. Making files over and over, destroying them, recreating them. You're not coming back expecting something new to keep you engaged, but because you love it. Genuine love, even if it means replaying the bad routes. You are racked with a perverted sentimentality. After the genocide is completed, you can replay it how many times you want, and Kara will be stuck in a single dialogue commenting on this sort of perverted love, and how you can't accept that the game is over, and thus you keep coming back to it like it's a magnet, instead of moving on to the next world like they asked you to. You can't move on. Moving on is a very important subject in this story. Sans, for example, is someone who struggles to move on from his past. And in the pacifist route, you show him that maybe he doesn't need another life to be happy, and he can find peace in this one. The game wants you to move on after pacifist and not to reset it, but it's harder to do it now, because if at the time moving on meant keeping the long-term reward of the game, the character's freedom, now you don't have that. You're basically leaving behind a broken world. And it's here that you start asking yourself, was it worth it? Because maybe, hear me out, just maybe, you care about this game more than you thought. Maybe you didn't need to see everything after all. You just needed a good memory. Maybe, if you could go back, you wouldn't reset after the true pacifist. And this is why Kara, looking at your sentimentality, hits you with one of the coolest and saddest quotes in the game. This feeling you have, this is what I spoke of. Unfortunately, regarding this, you made your choice long ago. In the end, I wouldn't say Undertale is criticizing something in particular in the strict sense of the word. It's more a love letter to what makes games valuable, what makes them more than just toys to play with. That's what I meant earlier when I said Flowey is wrong in thinking about characters are nothing more outside of the short-term fun they give you. Games can change lives, and if there is a part of you, even a small part of you, that would like to talk to the monsters you see while playing Earthbound and treat them as people, then maybe it's worth doing it in the game that allows you to. Maybe you don't need all the love and pieces of snowmen in the world. You just need a single piece of snowman to bring very far away to see their smile. Or a piece to lose somewhere and remember their disappointment. That works too. Don't be a hero, be a friend. Don't do things to see what happens. Do things to spread love, like only a human could. Create a special connection with what you're playing, because in the end, that's what makes a game alive. And perhaps you can receive something from it that sticks with you, even after the end is reached. Who knows? Maybe for your entire life. Chapter 2. The Hunt for Gaster. As I'm sure you know, Undertale was a massive success. This could make some people assume that this game is a sort of response to the success. Well, in a way, that is true. Toby Fox revealed something very interesting about Deltarune, that it came before Undertale. Not only that, Undertale was born while he was trying to make the game we now know as Deltarune. He claims that after he started making Undertale, he decided that his next game would have to be a mix between the concept he had in mind and Undertale. The reason I wanted to make this clear is that it can help us understand why these two games are so connected by similar subjects. They created each other, if that makes sense. If you've been a big Undertale fan since the very start, you're probably very, very familiar with the character of W.D. Gaster. If you don't, there's lots of videos online you can find of people explaining the long history behind this character. But to keep it short, he was the old royal scientist in Undertale, relating to a sort of experiment with darkness. No one really understood what that meant at the time, but that was intended. According to his followers, Gaster fell into his own creation and was shattered across the entirety of reality, to the point where he can hear and see us any moment and at any place. That's kinda spooky, isn't it? Well, believe it or not, there's something even more spooky than Gaster. People. What is perhaps even more interesting than the story behind Gaster himself is the massive involvement he had in the community. People were so drawn by this sense of mystery and need for an answer that this man has more fans than many of the main characters of Undertale. If you ever crossed in the Dana Miners community from around 2017, looking for Gaster was basically a hunt, an infamous case of being the demon message. We'll talk about that later. It was a crazy time to be part of that community. Gaster would get added to merch shortly and then removed. People had started thinking that there was going to be some kind of update, or an Undertale 2 that was all about the secret man. Then, one day, Toby Fox tweets this. Cold. It's cold. It's as if everything had been enveloped in a black wind. You didn't realize it yet, but it seems that there's someone who wants to talk to you. Shortly after, the official Undertale account changes. The name Undertale gets completely removed and replaced by blank. The banner and the profile picture get replaced with black pictures, and the man himself starts talking. Welcome. Have you been looking for me? How wonderful. I'm not going to explain why this is almost undoubtedly Gaster. Lots of people already did that. This little introduction about him was done to begin understanding what kind of entity we're talking about. If this was any other game, Gaster being scattered throughout reality would just mean he's creepy and glitched out. But this is a Toby Fox game. Gaster isn't just omnipresent in Undertale's world, but everywhere. He can peek into our own reality, and others, and greets us while fully aware that we, the community, have been looking for him for ages. But why is he contacting us now? I have something I want to show you. Something I think you will find very, very interesting. Something to show us? Well, one's first thought is that Toby's making a new game, and that these tweets are just promotional material. You know, not related to an actual narrative. But would Gaster's first spoken dialogues really be a joke? And as we question this, things get way more specific. But it is not complete yet. No, it is far from complete. Thus, I have a small favor to ask of you. Return here in 24 hours. At that time, I will ask you a few questions. Then, using your responses, we will approach its realization. Far from complete. Approach its realization. Now, if big words weren't being used to make him sound cooler, what he's saying is oddly close to what the developer of a game would say. The game is far from being complete, which is true, and Toby needs our feedback on it to reach its realization, which is literally exactly what Toby tweeted some minutes after this, specifically while quoting what Gaster just said. Toby says, "For those who completed Undertale, it's really important that you check at Undertale 24 hours from now. I want to make something new, and it all begins with your feedback. A PC, Windows, and Mac OS PC is needed." Needless to say, those were the longest 24 hours of many people's lives. But at some point, Gaster finally came back. Thank you for waiting so long. After all, you and I, we have both been waiting for such a long time. Here we have another reference to his awareness of Undertale. Of course, we've been waiting for a long time. We already completed the previous game, but what has he been waiting years for? So to be here, finally, on the verge of connection, is quite exciting. I look forward to creating a new future with you. Once again, he talks like a game developer. It seems that we'll be able to shape our fate in this new game, just like we shaped the previous future of Undertale's world. You know, choices. All of these references to Undertale and his awareness of us having been in that world would imply that this is a sort of sequel, right? Or maybe not a sequel narratively, but rather a second game meant for people who played Undertale, like Toby said in this tweet. And it is. Like, it is literally meant for people who have completed Undertale. And every official content about the game kept repeating it like a broken record. This is intended for people who have completed Undertale. It's just a game you can play after you complete Undertale, if you want to. This program is intended for players who are really familiar with Undertale. Would you like to check out Undertale first? This is for players that completed Undertale. As a matter of fact, although many don't know this Gaster event is paralleling what happened in Undertale's own release, where Flowey actually talked from the account and he brought up the same concept of old future by telling us he knows that we have waited a lot and he can't wait to see what we'll do next. In this case, he's talking about the Undertale demo. In Gaster's case, he's talking about Undertale the full game. And as we're still questioning what exactly he means with connection, Gaster reveals the title of the game, Deltarune. Now, if you weren't there at the time for Deltarune's release, you gotta see how the website looked. It's very different from what it looks now, to say the least. Welcome. Please read these final warnings, then take it in your hands. There may be moving or flashing imagery. You may have to override security protocols to use the program. For public safety, you're advised to refrain from discussion of the program for 24 hours. You accept everything that will happen from now on. Here he is just casually admitting to be able to see us, by asking us not to discuss the program online for some hours. What is happening here makes it almost look like whatever game Toby is making is being made by Gaster in the narrative. But how in the world is that even possible? Everyone started downloading this program, thinking it was going to be some kind of survey to understand what people like or prefer and shape whatever game will come later. I mean, it was literally titled Survey Program. Oh yeah, not even the license agreement of the program is safe. He is there as well. As you open the program, you're greeted, not so surprisingly, by a direct continuation of what these tweets said, confirming they were indeed more than just a joke. Noticeably, the title of the window of this program is called Contact, not Deltarune. Weird, right? Well, time to answer the questions which are gonna help create Deltarune, and what the heck is that? Some kind of gray kid? For whatever reason, all the survey's questions are about a character. A creepy, faceless human. Vessel? Creature? Obviously, one guesses that this is who we're going to be playing as. But wasn't the game far from complete? In any case, you answer. Bravery as power, favorite kind of food is sweet, and then there's favorite blood type, like old JRPGs. And finally, the name. You can name it after yourself. That's what you usually do in games, right? You and your character are not the same entity. Either way, the character, or vessel, as he calls it, is done. So I guess you can play now, right? Chapter 3. Reality versus Fantasy. If you're here, you must know what Deltarune is about. But well, do you? Because when asked about this game, people tend to be incredibly confused. It's kind of like Undertale, but also not really Undertale. In order to start understanding it, let's begin from the most obvious question. What is Deltarune about? In summary, we're in a world different from Undertale's. One that, however, shares many of the same characters. From this world, called the Light World, the protagonists Susie and Chris, a monster and a human, discover a magical fantasy place in the closet of their school, called the Dark World. Here, they get told that they are legendary heroes, destined to save the world from the big bad guys. In fact, it seems that what creates Dark World is something called fountains? Basically geysers of darkness extracted from somewhere under the ground. And a certain knight has started recently making these geysers, and if too many are released, they will destroy the world. Many reviewers have talked about this, but on first glance, this is an incredibly classic and trivial premise for an RPG. It's something you'd expect in an old JRPG from years ago, not a Toby Fox game. The journey throughout this dark world in the first chapter is very surreal. It's fun, engaging, happy, but also odd and mysterious, and has this sort of feeling to it that makes it all feel forced. Constant bright colors, happy tunes, classic tropes, the characters treating you like the second coming of Christ, even though Chris and Susie are just random students? This feeling only increases as odd moments break through the seemingly classic story, with Susie saying things like, "It's like nothing I eat here matters." It's almost like a dream. However, there is one specific scene that starts making things almost unnerving. At some point, the gang begins talking about happiness. LyraHorrorz says,
That's because you're alongside the Lightners, Lancer. Our purpose, Darkner's purpose, is to assist them. It's the only way we can truly feel fulfilled.
According to LyraHorrorz, Darkners, dark world beings, their entire life purpose is to serve Lightners, light world beings, and this is the only way Darkners themselves can feel fulfilled and useful. Like toys. Toy Story reference. Obviously, this makes Susie uncomfortable. It becomes clear that Darkners are meant to make Lightners happy, and it's not completely clear why at first. You follow this classic adventure, reach the final big evil boss and defeat him, and finally find the fountain. You seal it, like the prophecy says, and then you wake up in the old classroom. Suddenly, you start realizing why this is a Toby Fox game. Every enemy, every area, every boss, every puzzle, every deep lore about this place was just a room full of toys. The crazy story about gods locking us in a prison is just the teachers of the school choosing not to use this classroom anymore, thus preventing the kids from playing with these toys and denying Darkners the possibility to fulfill their purpose. Everything slowly starts making more sense, especially as you get to explore the light world, the world outside. What starts becoming clear is that this world outside is mimicking our own. It's mimicking reality. If you remember, when talking about Undertale's meaning, we touched on the subject about how characters' freedom was the literal freedom from their role as toys in your hands. Them doing jobs and things that we do in our own world, on the surface, like driving a car, having sunlight, living normal lives. Well, that is exactly what the light world is. What Deltarune did was take all the characters in the underground from Undertale, who were previously just RPG monsters, and take away the RPG part from it, put them into realistic contexts, a classic town with classic rules, normal food, normal laws. The powerful 6 human souls are just 6 cool flowers now, which do not talk. There is no war, there is no underground, there is no Undertale. In Undertale, Toriel used the literal RPG magic of her kind to prepare food, leading to the stovetop being perfectly clean. But in the light world, it's just a normal stove. Here comes the funny, small, absolutely not important issue with this. The light world sucks. No one can choose who they are in this world. And it's here that the big subject of control starts hitting Deltarune. In real life, you can't choose who you are. What this means is that when you're born, there isn't a magic voice asking you what body and superpowers you would like to have. You have to fight for it. You have to fight to be yourself, to be free, and to have your own control. That's why you're not allowed to play as your character in the light world. It's just not how things work around here. And this is visible through every single member of the main cast of characters. Chris is an adopted kid who has a hard time fitting in and understanding themselves, complex relationships with their brother, terrible fear of growing up, and struggle to even fit in what, for others, is daily life. Susie closed herself into the role of a bully in school out of fear of being hurt emotionally, as she's probably scarred by profound family issues. Noelle struggles to say no to anyone, including life itself, has been dragged around by fate for her whole life, unable to have control on it. She lost her sister and is losing her dad. She admires Susie for her ability to kick fate in the butt. Birdly, a clearly neurodivergent bird if you ask me, kid in desperate need of affection from someone, tries to be at the center of attention and ends up building expectations around them that he can't maintain. all of these characters' issues are related to a terribly, painfully realistic plot. And not realistic in the sense of plausible, but in the sense of things that we experience on a daily, real-life basis. In Undertale, Asgore's issue was to win a war, kill 6 children, wrestle with his conscience, and magic powerful souls to become God. Here, he's struggling to pay rent for the month. When you turn the light on in a room, you see things for what they really are. A chair is nothing more than a chair, and your life is as hard as it looks. And that's what the light world symbolizes in Deltarune. But what if you could turn the lights off? This is what makes fiction addicting to begin with. Fiction gives you everything you want, immediately. A cool-ass outfit to beat up the bad guys, adventures of entertainment, friends. Everyone treats you as a legendary hero, even when in reality, you're just a teen who can't even pass school properly. That's what the Dark Worlds are. A fantasy. Queen, for example, understood that perfectly. She's a computer, the latest model in that. Unlike King, who's bitter and damaged by Lightners not playing in the class anymore, Queen isn't just being controlled by Lightners, but Lightners are being controlled by her. She's technology. We're addicted to it. You're using it right now to listen to this stream. Queen is so used to Lightners that she believes to perfectly understand what they need. Escapism. Screens are a pause button, a break from life's sorrows. So, if she could make this break their entire daily lives, by covering everything in darkness, they wouldn't need to suffer anymore. That's what her plan in Chapter 2 was about. And you know what's crazy about this? She's kind of right. Where Queen fails is that, as a robot, she doesn't really understand how emotions and happiness work. In her computer mind, it's all calculation. She's mathematically correct, but feelings aren't rational. You can't control someone's happiness. You can't tell them how they should feel, like you tell a computer to perform a task. And just because Lightners are happier in Dark Worlds, it doesn't mean that forcefully dragging a teenage girl in a cage and terrorizing her will give her the will to create more Dark Worlds. At some point, it becomes crystal clear what this game is about. It's emotional and heartbreaking to see Susie not realizing that Lancer turns into a card outside of darkness, daydreaming about basically replacing their real life with these fantasy characters. But darkness is the absence of light. A life like that wouldn't be, well, real life. It's this contrast that Toby's writing style seems to always have. In this case, it's light and dark, reality and dream, choices not mattering versus choices mattering, so on. Susie and Chris are kids with super hard lives, days of boredom, pain, lack of hope. Then suddenly, they're heroes, and life starts feeling fun again. Their hope comes back, their fears get reduced. They meet wonderful people and start socializing, because that is the power of fiction. And it's what Deltarune revolves all around. It really only takes a quick look at darkness to notice it. First Dark World? Toys and board games. Entertainment methods created by humans. Second Dark World? Internet, technology, entertainment methods created by people. Third Dark World? TVs and programs. All things we use to escape the pain and sorrows of our difficult lives. Despite all of this, though, there's still something a teensy bit weird about this story. You. Because, sure, this is amazing, but what does Gaster want from us? No, even better, why are we here? What does the story about escapism have to do with us controlling Chris? Who is making Dark Worlds? Why? These kinds of questions mix around in the player's head as they play, and create a similar feeling to what it was like to try and understand Gaster back in the start of the fandom. Personally, the question that interested me the most when playing this game was another. Something that I don't see being brought up often. Amongst the many, that's a little weird moments of Chapter 1, there's something that immediately caught my attention. LyraHorrorz says,
"Sometimes proceeding will take all three of us. Furthermore, only Chris can seal the Dark Fountain, so if you don't accompany us, you won't make it back home."
LyraHorrorz claims that only Chris can seal the fountains. This is a bit different from what the super awesome epic legend claims, which tells us at the start that only the heroes can seal them, and even sort of shows them doing it together. But that's not what I'd like to focus on. My question is, why is Chris the only one? This is kind of a big deal, because sealing the fountains is the whole goal of the game. My first guess would be because they're a human, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Humans in the game are put on the same level as monsters, peacefully coexisting as Lightners. As a matter of fact, Toby said in his original idea for the game that everyone in the light world were humans. Not only that, but the very thing that characterized humans in the first game, determination, is not what's needed to seal the fountains. It's the polar opposite. Determination is what creates them. You seal them, as one could imagine, through light. A strong, super powerful light. More powerful than Darkners. Even more powerful than Lightners. But didn't light represent reality? What could this power be? What could ever be inside their soul that is so real that it can cast away these worlds of fantasy? What could it be besides you? Toby Fox, talking about indie games, says, "When a player whose heart matches their creators, something strange happens. The player's hearts begin to shine. The game screen flashes like a cursed mirror. The player will be changed forever, and they may receive an incredible amount of hope from playing your game. This is the power of indie games." Chapter 4. Wait, was it Chapter 4 or Chapter 5? I don't remember anymore. Chapter 5. Making Games. Up until now, we have talked about how the light world mimics real life. For this reason, you cannot play as your creepy little faceless demon. But no, wait, seriously, why is the character gray? Well, it was because it was made by Gaster. Okay, but why is it made by Gaster? When you start an RPG, and you're asked to create your character, there isn't an in-game entity who allows you to do it. Is there? The game itself just gives it to you. Like, normally, things are the way they are simply because that's how games work. There isn't a reason why there's something called save files, which makes you reload time. The reason is that world was written to entertain you. Gaster is, well, artificially giving you a character, but the light world isn't. Think about it. When you start Undertale, you're greeted with an introduction, a set of instructions and commands, a title screen, a secret jingle if you type ball. What happens when you start Deltarune? Gaster asks you, "Are you there? Are we connected?" There is no title screen. There is no Deltarune title screen. Heck, not even the window is called that way. It's called Contact. When you first play Chapter 1, the window title will only have weird names. When you're in Dark Worlds, it's called the Dark. At the start of in the Light World, it says the Beginning. And when you come back, it says the Return. When you die, it's called the Death. Literally avoiding to make it seem like a game in every possible way. However, once you have actually completed the chapter and has seen the legend, it changes to Deltarune. The case in which it's the most visible is the save file selector. When you start playing, the menu where you select your save files is dark. Very methodical. Very empty. Unfinished. Not only this, but the menu is alive. There's not just a game text asking you what to do with the files, it's Gaster himself talking to you. He looks at what you do, appearing incredibly curious, and helps you select what you prefer. Gaster is studying you. He's a scientist, after all. This shouldn't be too surprising, but watch what happens when you complete the chapter. At the end of the game, the entire menu becomes a game. Let me ask you this. Every story of fiction for a game has a goal, right? Something that the protagonist is meant to reach and that keeps you playing. If Deltarune didn't have Dark Worlds, what would your purpose be in this game? You don't have one. What we're looking at here, as you may have figured out by now, is a game within a game. The selector, just like the window title, isn't Deltarune, because this world is not Deltarune. This world doesn't refer to the Light World, but to the adventure that is being created inside of the Light World. The legend, the three heroes, the story about the evil guy destroying the world because, yes, the classic RPG adventure we talked about. That is Deltarune. Believe it or not, Toby added a detail to show this even in the files. The entire intro of Deltarune, the save selector, and even the entire title screen is part of something called a device in the code. These files utilize weird words, always all caps, and names the files differently from everything else in the game, because that's how Gaster speaks. Gaster literally named these files himself. In Undertale, there is no outside world because being on the surface would imply leaving the game. The Undertale. The game starts when you fall into the fantasy world of monsters and end when you leave it. This is exactly what happens with Dark Worlds. Except, the game doesn't end at the fountain. You're back into the Light World, into reality. You're back into a world that is not a game. Gaster connected you to the Light World. And it's here that a lot of things start to truly make sense. His talk about connection, the contact window, the fact that the game doesn't start like a game at all. When you're downloading Deltarune, what you're really downloading is Survey Program, a device that literally connects us to the Light World, a world which, otherwise, would have continued perfectly existing without you. Are you starting to realize why your character is gray? Remember back in Undertale, when talking to Goner Kid, one of the Gaster followers, he says, "Have you ever thought about a world where everything is exactly the same, except you don't exist? Everything functions perfectly without you." The thought of that terrifies me. Have you ever noticed that the Light World takes away all your in-game mechanics? As we were saying, a lot of things in games are taken for granted because that's just how games work. For instance, take save files. You have them because you're the player of this game. But there are no save files in the Light World. They're only in darkness. Okay, well, let's take a look at another classic RPG mechanic then. When you start Undertale, the very first thing you get told is that there's fights and you can kill monsters to unlock cool things. There are no battles in the Light World. Okay, well, let's try puzzles. They're a classic gameplay element in Undertale, just like almost any RPG. There are no puzzles in the light world. As a matter of fact, there are no tutorials, no instructions, no skills, no armors, no weapons, no chests. All that fills this world in regards to your classic RPG player behavior is confusion. It's like, from our perspective, if the usually quiet and antisocial kid of a small town started walking around, talking with everyone about everything, interrogating them as if they didn't know them, and with a terrible curiosity wondering what they'll receive as a reward, and then they went to the hospital to see your sick dad, who also has no idea what they're doing there, you are not meant to be here. That's why the characters are weirded out by your behavior. Hell, that's why Chris is rebelling against you. The very term player implies the existence of a game made for them to play. But nothing in the design of this world is an RPG. Nothing here is meant for you, except the worlds that are being created inside the light world. Lightners aren't pawns in your hands, even though you can fight to treat them as such. Do we want to take a look at the dark world instead, though? Press the boxes onto the switches with C. Wait, what the hell is Z? Huh? What are you telling me to do? Act? Can someone please explain what's going on? In almost all the theories I see regarding Deltarune, people realize that the Dark World is meant to represent fiction and fantasy, entertainment, and that's true. After all, it derives from literal entertainment methods we use daily. But a car doesn't talk normally, a computer won't get into a turn-based fight with you, and a plushie isn't a shopkeeper that refills your HP and defense. Something people tend to forget about Dark Worlds is that while their subjects comprehend general fiction, they are specifically an RPG. The Dark World has fights, bosses, levels, rewards, weapons, armor, chests, puzzles, tutorials, saves. It's all there. Try to imagine the Lightners in the Light World mentioning game buttons. Like you go to the fridge and Toriel is like, Chris, honey, press C to open the fridge. It feels wrong, eh? What if I told you that's exactly what Darkners do all the time, eh? Ralsei, Lancer, all the Darkners do this. Many don't even notice this because it's natural to us. It's normal for the Dark World. Everything from the design, the colors, the characters, it's made to put you in control. To make it like a classic RPG, and make you the classic player in control of your own destiny. In fact, you do get different endings and routes in Dark Worlds. They have this inherent RPG nature to them, in the very way they function, that confuses Lightners profoundly, and makes them question, why does this all work like a game? The very first thing Noelle connects Dark Worlds to is Dragon Blazers, the RPG game that she likes to play with her dad, because that's what the Dark World works like, an RPG. This constant contrast between classic game characters and Lightners creates unique situations. The Lightners can resist your control, because they weren't made to follow it. They're outside the game, like Susie. Remember how Chapter 1 plays out? On one hand, you have the game world with Ralsei and everyone else, your mechanics, your fights, and most importantly, your choices. But then you have one thing that completely stands out. It's Susie. If you were there when the chapter released, you might remember dozens of posts of people crazy worried that Susie was ruining the pacifist run. This is absolutely intended, because Ralsei asks you to spare everyone, just like Toriel did in Undertale. And just like in Undertale, you have control of it. The literal gameplay of Chapter 1 consists you of having to utilize the battle system to work around Susie's bad behavior and get your silly little good ending. She's a dysfunctional party member. You want to spare? Too bad, she doesn't. She stands out compared to everything else in the Dark World because she questions you, she judges you, and if she doesn't like the way you play, she refuses to play the way you want, separating herself from the gameplay around you. Another great example is the equipment. Susie doesn't allow you to unequip her armor. She doesn't want to, so you can't. It's simple as that. The point here is, these characters are not your toys. Susie is not your toy. A very good example of all this came from Toby himself. As you may remember, this man cares a whole lot about preserving the meaning and narrative of his characters. To the point where in Undertale, even though he made merch for many monsters and even the human kid, he refused to make merch of Kara, saying that there's something too symbolic to be a physical toy. Well, in a game like Deltarune, it would be normal to have merch of Dark Nurse. But for Light Nurse? If the Light World isn't a game, and it wasn't meant for you to play, you shouldn't be meant to have toys of these guys, right? And in fact, Toby Fox himself refuses to make merch of Light Nurse. In a post on Tumblr, Toby says, "Recently, Fangamer brought something to my attention. It seems that there's some disappointment that certain characters of Deltarune, particularly those from the Light World, aren't getting very much merchandise. This is an intentional decision. I wish I could explain more now, but when I consider everything, I don't think certain official merch, plushies, etc., of certain characters feels right for this game. Since Chapter 1, I told Fangamer that some characters would be more or less off-limits after a certain point, and this feeling has only gotten stronger over time. These characters include Chris, Susie, and Noelle. Other times, particularly with Dark World characters like Spamton, I consider the game's setting and think, the game is improved by selling this." He's completely fine with Dark Nurse merch, but it just feels weird for Light Nurse. Are you starting to understand why? Moving forward on this subject, it's sort of a common trope for RPGs to give the player a lobby, which grows as they progress in the game. For example, we mentioned it earlier, in Moon RPG you have Castletown, which grows and changes as you keep playing. Deltarune has one too, and it's specifically called Castletown. This place is extremely important. It's where Ralsei lives, and where the legend is revealed. It's where every single enemy you fight goes to live once you recruit them, and it's where you can train, buy items, and unlock new quests. But later on, it's revealed that this town's real name is another. It's your own name. The name that you put at the start of the game. The biggest and most important Dark World is called Player Town. And not only this, but everyone in it treats you as their absolute boss. With the knowledge of what differentiates light and dark, it's not surprising at all. This is what the Darkness Experiment is about. Gaster is creating a game. He is a fictional character who became obsessed with fiction ever since he realized his original world was fictional. And he's doing it through artificial, physical in-universe means. Between 2015 and 2016, the Deltarune website already existed, and it only contained a picture hidden in the dark of text in Windings called him.png. This text was about Deltarune, and has Gaster talking of the legend that keeps the game referring to it as an interesting experiment. The same he quotes in his infamous Entry 17. That's why only you can seal the fountains. The Dark Worlds are the game. They can be entertainment for everyone, but their deepest nature, which secret bosses are aware of, is that it's all a game. This is your world. This is the place where your choices matter, where you have control, where you feel like you're playing a classic game instead of being thrown in a cage. But who would be able to consume and complete the video game, if not the player? Chris, Susie, Noelle, Birdley, they're all with you. But none of them is the player of Dark Worlds. None of them have the main Dark World named after them. None of them can seal fountains, except you. We're talking about a man who knows basically everything about his reality, and is literally beginning to study our own real world. Someone who has lived inside of a game in the past, and is perfectly aware of how it functions and what relationship we built with it. What better way to study the limits between what's real and fake by artificially recreating worlds of entertainment for you and the lighteners to explore? When you're a game developer, your mind is always on the audience. Every part you create makes you question how the audience will react to it. The reason we, as humans, make games in the first place is to help people by making them have fun and maybe give them something more than that through the experience we created. So the question isn't always, how do I feel about this character, as much as it is, how do you feel? There are certain Darkners, the secret bosses, who are aware of the real nature of their world and lose their sanity because of it. Do you remember what made Jevil insane? Everyone is participants of Deltarune without even being aware of it. All of this adventure is planned ahead. Darkners already know what Dark World will be next before it happens, and it's all part of this big journey that the legend embodies. Just like Chris and Susie were made into heroes by literally forcing them to fall into the closet through the doors locking. You, Chris, Susie, and Ralsei didn't choose to have the role you were given. You've all been put into it. Everyone is playing a part. Ralsei waited alone his entire life in a town named after you for this journey to start, so that he could be the tutorials guide guy and make sure everything goes as planned and you keep saving the world. It's all a game. Darkness already knew Chris and Susie's names before you arrived. They even knew what skills Chris and Susie would have had. Earlier we came to the conclusion that Deltarune is about fantasy against reality. And this is true, for the most part. But you see, the thing about fantasy is that we create it. Entertainment, fiction, all these methods that we can use to take breaks from our own daily lives. They exist because someone put hours of their time into creating something, wondering how others would have reacted to it, feeling like a curious scientist, driving forward a social experiment. That's the power of creation. Games aren't any different. Out of all the characters Gaster could parallel in Deltarune, you'd expect him to parallel Sans or something, but instead, he parallels Gerson. Take a look at Gaster's backstory. Alphys might work faster, but the old royal scientist Dr. W.D. Gaster, his brilliance was irreplaceable. After all, the old one, Dr. Gaster, what an act to follow. However, his life was cut short. And now look at Gerson in Deltarune. It's been a few years since my father passed on. A brave man, brilliant and sharp. Chris, it is a shame you were not able to have him as a teacher, and difficult for Miss Alphys as his replacement. An intelligent man, remembered for how smart he was, passes away and Alphys has to replace him. This seems to make no sense at first. Why Gerson of all people? Guess what Gerson is remembered for in this game? Gerson was blessed to have such a talent for writing that such a story, created for such a simple purpose, could blossom into such a large, wonderful, world-changing thing. That is the majesty of words, Chris. Gerson was an author. He entertains people. He tells stories. Specifically, he wrote stories about fantasy battles and heroes which still inspire people in the town to this day. He wrote The Lord of the Hammer, just like Gaster wrote Deltarune. Funnily enough, Gaster's name is also an anagram for stager, and you know how important anagrams are in the series. The definition of stager is one who puts on a performance or event. Oh, that's oh, I didn't know. I never knew about that. Oh, that's kind of fun, actually. The light world is a place that's being forced to behave like a game, but this is not natural. Dark worlds, magic, fantasy RPG battles, none of these things are something that would normally exist if it wasn't for Gaster, who accessed this world by straight up shattering across all of reality. And while I know some people believe he's creating a game for some evil plan that only benefits himself, personally I doubt it. What Gaster gains from making Deltarune is what many game developers gain from making art. That is, an open view on people, how they work, and what exactly is the limit that one can create between fiction and reality. Even more than through a book or a movie, a player's relationship with a game is incredibly complex. Their choices, their preferences, the way they feel about it. And when you're developing a game, you often find yourself having to wonder how the player will get through your game, to try to surprise them. Gaster is a scientist. He's interested in the world around him and in understanding how it works. And ever since he found out that he was fictional, and the fictional nature of his origin world, there's nothing more interesting to him than understanding how this concept connects to so many living beings. The way he describes this experiment is always that same word. Very interesting. The same word he uses as he watches you move through the save selector he created for you. He is curious and interested in you, in the Lighteners, and how each person relates to what he created in their own unique way. Just a kind of feeling I'm sure many artists can relate to. In our real world, what Gaster is doing could be considered a social experiment. But to him, this is a scientific one, as it involves physical in-universe powers and connections of different realities. This doesn't mean that Gaster is good either, by the way. He does things out of curiosity to understand the world and study it, and if you were to use his game to murder Lighteners and ruin their lives forever, that too would be interesting to him. I believe that's what gives him a sort of antagonistic nature. He's a constant presence, puppeteering everything behind the curtains. We use games to take a break, to have fun, to stop worrying about life for just a little bit. The issue with games only comes when sometimes they become almost an addiction. When you start attempting to make all those fantasy worlds your daily life. If you remember, Undertale was all about the short-term value of games against their long-term one, but it never focused particularly on explaining why the long-term one is so important. Why is it important to give a reward for playing that remains after the game is closed? This is a big focus in Deltarune. Had Susie traveled through the dark world only clobbering enemies and having fun beating them up, never end up treating them as individuals or listening to you and Ral say, do you think that she'd be happy? Sure, she probably would have had a lot of fun doing it, but at the end of the day, that's all she's making Dark Worlds into. Short-term fun. The truth is, people need hope. They need something that makes them smile and makes them feel hopeful for their future. Something they look back on fondly whenever life is hard and it can help them get through it. Maybe even through growing up. And that can be video games. This is what makes that long-term value so important. Reaching the end of the game doesn't mean anything if you haven't built something throughout the journey that gives it meaning. So, my question is, when will this game in the game come to an end? What is the ending that Gaster planned for for Deltarune? Chapter 6: Freedom. We are approaching the final segments of this theory, and soon we'll have to talk about the Roaring Nights. But before we do, there's something I would like you to think about. We went to see how the light world is not a game. It's a world that was never meant for you and doesn't function to have you in it. Undertale's Underground was structured to have a player. That's the whole reason why there's save files, but if the light world is not meant to have you in it, are you even a player? Like, from the character's own perspective, if they could see you, would they go, "Oh, they're a player, we're in a game"? No, they wouldn't. If we saw someone from above the sky coming down and controlling us and telling us what to do as a spiritual voice in our heads in the real world, we'd think that they're a deity, a god. Not surprisingly, this seems exactly the direction that Deltarune is taking. As we've seen, our existence in this world is channeled through the Red Soul, a symbol of identity. But more specifically, we are represented by light. In boss fights, as you physically press on the character's skills, Chris orders them to do a certain move, and your soul shines light on them, making them stronger. This light power is the same thing that allows you to seal the fountains and to save the game, which is why the word power and verbs related to light, such as shines, are mentioned at every single save point. A very cool detail regarding this is that, since Chris is a lightener, your own save file with your own time and level will sometimes glitch at the start of a chapter and show Chris's name instead of yours. That's the save file confusing your two identities. Another thing I love is how the first time you save, you do it naturally. Any player who gets there will immediately run to the save file because it looks just like the one from Undertale. You are used to this, and the game comments on it too. By second nature, you reached out. The thing is that, in religion, God is light, and in Deltarune, that is no different. Light power. The town seems to have a religion that works around an angel, a classic deity from heaven, looking at them from above and guiding them through light. That's what you do for the entire game. Remember Player Town? The town with a giant castle that's your own castle and has your own name? Did you ever take a look at the castle itself? It's full of wings. It takes the role of the winged circle symbol in the Deltarune. And this is without even mentioning the inside of your castle. The angel motif is so huge here that every single door has wings coming from them, and one of them has a giant soul drawn on it as well. From the player being the angel, dozens and dozens of religious parallels are born. This game does that a lot. For example, Noelle has a lot of angelic imagery that is very symbolic of her character. Angels are commonly associated with the idea of freedom due to their wings, just like birds. But Spamton doesn't call Noelle an angel. He calls her the angel with tattered wings. Someone who wants to fly, but is unable to. That's what Noelle's entire character is about. Noelle is a dreamer. Noelle wishes to do crazy things and break the rules, like Susie does. But she grew up her whole life getting used to the idea that she's not strong enough to do that. She thinks life pushes her around and she can't do anything. And how couldn't she? Des was taken away by her outside of her control. Chris distanced themselves outside of her control. Her dad got sent to the hospital outside of her control. She thinks that she's weak, but she has dreams. Very big dreams. Which is why, in the dark world where fantasies come to life, her wishes to feel strong and in control of her life manifest through extreme power. a determination that Queen wanted to use for her plan, and that the player utilizes in the weird routes. Under the player angel angle, the parallel in the weird route becomes clear. Noelle is your key to freedom, because you're making her just like you. You're breaking the rules of the game, going against the path life intended for you to find your freedom, and you're toxically convincing her that it's a good thing by making her stats level up, by making Noelle strong, which is addictive to her because she's used to feeling weak, to have people talk over her in class, to have Birdly treat her like a damsel in distress that can't do anything by herself. Now that she's doing things that no one else can do, because you're making her free just like you, you're basically forcefully removing her tattered wings and replacing them with your own. Compared to the normal route where Noelle slowly gets over her fears and finds her own internal strength in courage rather than an external physical power. In fact, have you ever noticed how many religious parallels Noelle has? Specifically with Jesus. Thorn rings, crown of thorns. She is Jesus to your being a god. She is the Christmas girl. After all, she hears your voice and listens. Let the angel's power light your way. You and Noelle were filled with power. She got fucking crucified at the end of the chapter 2, the chapter 2 ending. One of my favorite examples of this is in the weird route, when you equip her with the ring. Every time you win a fight, a unique animation will play, showing Noelle locked inside of a snow globe. This snow globe is actually Player Town. You know, the town with angel wings everywhere. The one where even doors have angel wings and the cages have a soul with wings drawn on it. Chris locks you in a bird cage for fuck's sake. Bird cages are like the absolute symbol of lack of freedom in literature, because birds are angelic creatures, they have wings, they're meant to fly freely, but you're a bird attempting to fly somewhere you're not meant to be. The angel, like any deity from our real world, is a concept. We know from Father Alvin that there are other religions in the light world, meaning the angel is most likely not a literal person in the sky, but rather the idea that there might be an entity like that, an idea that people are free to believe it or not, like real-life religions. So, when we talk about the player being the angel, I don't see it as you being literally the deity of the light world, but rather as you perfectly filling the role that Lightners have built around this concept. They think of the angel as a higher entity from a higher layer of reality that watches over them from above and guides their way through light power. You're an entity from a higher layer of reality that watches over them from above and guides their way through light power. This is where the subject of freedom from the secret bosses comes in. What characterizes secret bosses is their awareness of being in a game. Not a literal video game, I'm talking of the knowledge that the physical matter of their world and existence is made of strings, which lead to a crazy scientist who wanted to make an experiment. This is different from being aware that they're objects. Someone like Queens knows she's a computer, but to her, being alive is normal. She doesn't know the origin of their reality, and the real reason she's alive to begin with. But Spamton and Jevil do. They know why they exist. They exist to be a part of this experiment made by Gaster, to be unaware participants like everyone else. And their whole world will most likely stop existing once you're done with them, once their purpose in entertaining you runs out. They are, yes, controlled by fate, but not in the way Lightners or us humans intended. It's a literal game, keeping them as NPCs and not allowing them to be anything more than that. This is the same reason why, in case you never noticed, Spamton and Jevil are connected to amusement park rides, and they're both figures of entertainment. Spamton is a puppet, and Jevil is a jester. Literally the royal entertainer. In Undertale, freedom was an important theme, and it represented monsters' freedom from being, you know, monsters. From being just toys in your hands, RPG numbers for you to consume and have fun while doing so. So if the secret bosses are darkners that are aware of Deltarune as an experiment, aware that everyone is a participant in this game, and they're created just for that, their freedom is being outside of that game. As the player, everything in Dark Worlds is tailored for you. It's your choices, your story, your routes. Darkners are mere toys in your hands. That's why Spamton desires your soul. He wants to be the player. He wants to matter. He wants to stop being an NPC. That's freedom to them. Being free means to be alive. Jevil finds his freedom in utilizing the knowledge he has to not listen to anyone. He can do whatever he wants, because he knows that he doesn't matter a single bit, so he can do anything. Spamton instead is a clear reference to Pinocchio. Pinocchio is a puppet, with a long nose who dreams to be a human boy. In the tale, this is used as a metaphor for life and growing up. Pinocchio wants to make his own choices, mess up and pay his own consequences. He wants to break out of the world of rules and adults constantly telling him what he can and can't do, and that's what brings him to discover the harshness of life. Spamton wants to be a real person, like you, like Chris, or Susie, like any living being that isn't created with a purpose, to follow, but is free to find themselves along the way. A light being. That's the main difference between a character and a person. A character is born with a specific purpose and role, like Ralsei. After Spamton's fight, you can get the puppet scarf made of his strings. You'd expect this item to go to Chris, since they're a puppet, but instead, it goes to Ralsei. Chris is being forced to act as a puppet, but they weren't born to be your character. That's why they rebel. How was Ralsei born again? Created from someone, alone in an empty town, which was nothing but a placeholder for when you would have arrived to make it Player Town. Waiting alone for God knows how long. How long purely just so he can fulfill his purpose. The purpose he was given, to be one of the protagonists of this story. He doesn't know who he is outside of that. No one told Susie to be sarcastic and mean. She chose it herself. No one told Chris to like chocolate or moss. But everything Ralsei is wasn't his choice. It's how he was meant to be. That's the real difference between a Darkner and a Lightner. Spamton wants your light, the very thing that symbolizes your reality. Your being a living being and not a toy. He tried to use the power of a Lightner, but that it's not enough. He wants the power to be a real person. So he goes for the much stronger light. A light so strong it can seal fountains. A light which comes from the angel, and would allow him to peek into heaven. Your soul. And what is really creepy about this is that he can't. Spamton can't be more than just a puppet, because that's what he was created to be. And he finds that out when you cut off all the strings and he dies. He literally cannot exist without them. It's here that we're slowly approaching what the point of this freedom from a game subject is about. In the end, Spamton accepts that he can only be a puppet, but the heroes are not one. The gang is stronger than him. They weren't created for a purpose. And even Ralsei, who instead was created specifically to be one of the heroes, is starting to find himself to be more than that. Spamton couldn't break his own strings, but maybe you can. With all the knowledge that these religious parallels are giving us, I feel like something is starting to become clear. If Deltarune truly is a game, an adventure that's being created in the game as you progress, then the focus eventually will have to shift from we have to save the world from the evil knights to we have to put an end to this game. Because this game, although fun for you and able to positively affect the Lightners, is hurting Chris and stealing their identity. We've seen how the Light World takes away all things that would normally be given to you by the game itself. Your own character is being made by someone in the narrative. The menus are built by someone in the narrative. Your own connection to this world exists because someone opened it. Normally games end at a certain point because, well, that's where the developer chose to make it end. But there isn't a reason why you can't continue playing after leaving the underground outside from the writing of the story. But the Light World is not a game. The story can only end when the connection opened at the start will be closed. This connection, along with the release of the survey program, happened on a special day, the night between October 31st and November 1st. This night is known as Halloween, but in the past it used to be known as Hallows' Eve, a holy evening. November 1st, All Saints' Day, also known as All Hallows' Day, a day to honor all saints of the church that have attained heaven. The evening before All Saints' Day became a holy or hallowed eve, and thus Halloween, according to Encyclopedia Britannica. What is All Saints' Day, and why do we celebrate it? On All Saints' Day, we celebrate all saints who are in heaven. These include all known and unknown saints. It is a holiday rooted in the belief that the world is spiritually connected to heaven. A day of connection between earth and the souls from heaven. Think about it. What is that layer of reality that we imagine above our own? That place where angels come from, which is made of pure light. If we are an angel from those characters' perspective, then our world is heaven. There is probably a symbolic meaning of the word too, as dark worlds are your heaven, in a paradisical sense, but every time this world is mentioned, it's for something literal. Stand up with our heads in the clouds and look into heaven. So if this game started with a connection between the light world and heaven, it will end when we close it. That's why the heroes banish the angels' heaven at the end of the game. The way this phrase is worded is so incredibly curious, but if you replace these terms with less symbolic words, it becomes banish, the three heroes banish the player's world. That's what Spamton means by breaking our strings. To banish something means to send it away from a place, and we know the ending to this game is the reason Toby wanted to make it in the first place. So knowing him, this concept is definitely something that would make him incredibly inspired. When people hear this concept, they often get sad as it sounds like you're only a bad thing for these characters. But I don't see it that way. The reason you have to be sent away to banish the angels' heaven is that you were never meant to explore this world, and the game won't end as long as you're in it. If you treat this story for its long-term value, just like Undertale taught you, it will remain with these characters for all their lives as something positive. Lancer, Ralsei, Playertown. It's a story full of sad and hard things, but also wonderful moments you can choose to cherish forever. The ending is one, no matter what, but it's up to you how to get there. You can be the RPG player, treat everyone as toys for your entertainment, and fight to maintain your freedom until your very last breath. Or perhaps, you can be a friend. You can help them find a way to close the connection with your world. You can help Noelle face her fears, Birdly become more honest. You can help Susie start opening her heart more and connect these things together through a friendship bond that will last forever. Just like the gang will have to learn to let go of darkness and cherish them in their heart as memories, you can do the same for them. Though we'll talk about more of this later. And never say never. Maybe you and Chris have more in common than it seems. Maybe one day you could even be friends. I know we've talked about a lot, and your head must be spinning by now, so to make things easier before we dive into the night, here's a summary of things we talked about. Deltarune is Gaster's experiment to study the nature of fiction. He is artificially recreating an RPG for you to play by using darkness, and he's using the light world as a stage for it. This means that the dark world adventure, the legend, and the darkness are made specifically for you, for this experiment. Meanwhile, the lightners are dragged into it, but they weren't created for this. They weren't created for a game, nor to be toys for you to play with. The game is being made inside their world. This is why they have the ability to rebel against you, like Susie and Chris do. And it's why the light world is deprived of any RPG mechanics like the dark world has, such as save files, battles, puzzles, and tutorials. Lightners find the dark worlds fun and comforting, and use it as a break to escape from the issues affecting their lives. This is because, of course, dark worlds are born from entertainment methods, and are an RPG at its core. In the real world, you often lack control over your own life, meaning in a game you control everything, because it's all written in a script, or a legend in this case. Oppositely, from the darkness perspective, the light world is freedom, because darkners are beings born from a script, and forced to play the role that they have in the script of the game. Ralsei didn't choose to be Ralsei, he was made this way. Spamton didn't choose to be Spam Mail, which is why he dreams of being a big shot. Lightners have the possibility to fight against fate, to make their choices matter, because their world is dynamic. It's in constant change, and this same chaotic unpredictability is both what makes the characters hate their lives, but also what gives them the power to fight, to choose who they are. There is no prophecy saying Susie has to be sarcastic, she just likes to be. Which is why some darkners dream of being real lightners, and why replacing your life with fiction would be harmful in the long term. There are many implications in the game that, since the light world isn't a game, but rather the stage on which the game is built, you're not seen as a player from the lightner's perspective, but as an angel. This would make our world heaven, the real world, and it might mean that the game will end when the characters will be able to separate our world from theirs and send us back to our own real life the same way they have to get back to theirs. And we'll either help them fight to close the connection, or, in the weird route, fight against them to prevent them from banishing us. Ooh, I really like that last bit, actually. Alright. Only 60 pages left. Chapter 7. The Roaring Night. Alright, here we go. What's it gonna be? Let's talk about determination. Most of you probably know what it's about, but I'd like to focus on it for a moment. Determination is the feeling and power of will that fuels any living being when they have a goal in mind to reach. It's not what brings that goal to exist in the first place, but rather the power to do anything to make it happen, and getting up even if you fail, over and over again. We could say, in other words, that determination is what allows you to make your dreams come true, and avoid being punished or pushed around by fate. From here, there are two important words that we must add: hopes and dreams. Your goals, aka your dreams, are what makes life a journey. They don't have to be crazy dreams. A mouse's dream to take the cheese on the table, your dream to learn a language you're studying, or even just a kid's dream to defeat a strong enemy in a game. That's where determination comes in. Pushing the kid to keep pressing continue over and over again. But determination on itself isn't enough, because if you aren't hopeful about succeeding, you might just give up. So that's why we have hopes. The strength of how much we want our dreams to come true. Now, if Undertale shows us determination from a conceptual point of view in order to highlight the beauty and danger of life, Deltarune does something a bit more unique, because the light world mimics real life. In the real world, determination is not all you need to survive, because as we talked about before, real life takes control away from you. You can be determined to become a basketball player as much as you want, but life can decide to put you in a car accident and paralyze your entire body. And this is terrifying. Our lack of control is so scary that we create entertainment to try to take our minds away from it, because as we mentioned, if in the real world you're not always in control of your dreams, in a game, you always are. Now, the reason I wanted to make this clear is the following. If dreams are canonically, in UTDR, the absolute goal of determination, then that explains why determination is what you need to make the fountains. Dark worlds are dreams, and by focusing your will to make that dream come true, you make a fountain. With the knowledge in mind of why dark worlds are so strongly tied to dreams, there's an instant follow-up realization. The knight, who focuses their determination into the blade, must have a dream too. It's fulfilling everyone's dreams, actually. For King, the knight embodies his dream to get revenge on Lightners. For Queen, her dream to help Lightners. For Susie, her dream of a family. For Noelle, to be in control of her life, and so on. So my question is, what is the knight's dream? What is the roaring knight's dream that manifests into these worlds and fulfills everyone's wishes? This question is incredibly hard to think about on its own, but I believe everything we have talked about is with everything we talked about, it's a lot easier to imagine it. We mentioned how Gaster is seemingly creating a game for us, and the Lightners to play in his studies of fiction and people's relationship with it. So, given dark worlds have been planned ahead, it's likely that the knight makes fountains for the same reason. They are, creating Deltarune. But why? What could push the knight to want to create Deltarune? What do they personally gain out of expanding your player town and helping Gaster make this living RPG? To all of this, we need to factor in the roaring. It seems the knight is gonna cause it, and they do cause it when you give up and the game is over. But why? If they want to bring the roaring, why not just stab the earth a couple times? Why not make fountains in rooms you can't access instead of making them in public spaces, extremely easy to find? Why make fountains in this specific town at all, if the only person able to seal them lives here? Overall, it seems that the knight makes fountains specifically for you and the heroes to seal, almost as if their determination is to make your own dreams come true. Regarding this, we get a special sort of weird interaction in Player Town. After you recruit the enemies from Chapter 2, Rudin will have an updated dialogue. They'll remark how as more worlds appear and as you progress through this fantasy journey, your own town grows more and more. And he refers to this whole adventure as a dream that grows with care. Things have changed again here in Player Town. This is a dream that grows with love and care. Please don't be afraid to dream. This gives the sweet idea of Deltarune as a game and journey being kind of like your dream. You're the player, you downloaded this software to play, to have more Undertale, and as this journey progresses, your dream grows and expands your cute little town. Now, there is another very important moment in the narrative where dreams affect it, and that is where in the Spamton fight. If you remember, Spamton's dream was to be a big shot, because it's the opposite of what he was made to be. To fulfill his twisted dreams, Spamton needs to steal the Neo body. Spamton never gets to reach his dreams, but that's besides the point. What I'd like to focus on is, why the hell is the Neo body so powerful? A sketch of a robot drawn on MS Paint by Mettaton on the library's PC. That doesn't exactly make me think of something powerful. We could imagine that, perhaps, Mettaton drew it specifically to be powerful, but the answer is deeper than we think. Swatch reveals to us that the Neo body is not just Mettaton's drawing, and it's not just the body itself that is powerful, but what it represents. That robot is the physical, living embodiment of Mettaton's dream, and Mettaton's hope for that dream to come true gives it an immeasurable power. Oh, by the way, before we continue, there's a fucking cat on my lap right now, and he's purring like a machine gun. Listen to this. Damn. This kitty is so powerful. Kitty. Kitty, please. Kitty, please. I don't know if you guys can hear it, or like the microphone is going to like noise cancel it out. He's currently like snuggling the microphone really hard. Oh, okay, he wants to leave. Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye, kitty. Would you call them a friend? He's my son. Anyways. What was I doing again? Sorry, I got a little bit sidetracked by friend. We heard the brrrr. Yay! Anyways. Now, this is where things get interesting. This reveals to us that if a certain something embodies a Leitner's dream, it becomes something incredibly powerful in the Dark World. This makes sense because, as we mentioned, Dark Worlds themselves are the result of dreams, and someone's determination to make that dream come true. But isn't all of this a little familiar? A body built by someone from a higher layer of reality. Yes, it's exactly what you do to create your vessel. Toby draws a direct connection of the vessel to the Neo body, calling them the same thing. Therefore, if the Neo body is the embodiment of Mettaton's dream, that means that the vessel is the embodiment of your own dream. And as the game mentioned before, your dream is Deltarune itself, the journey, the new content, the new chapters, the possibility to be with these characters again. The game is your way to escape from reality, the same way Susie and Chris escape through the Dark Worlds. This is a dream that grows with love and care. Don't be afraid to dream. Bear with me here. The Neo body isn't just powerful because it's Mettaton's dream, but because it's filled with hope. Mettaton's hope fuels the robot, making it tremendously strong. This, of course, makes clear how important Leitner's hopes are in the Dark World. Now, if you remember, when Chapter 2 came out, Gaster came back on Twitter once more. He thanked us for waiting and persevering. Guess how he described Deltarune? Deltarune glows brightly from your hope. The Leitner filled it with their own hope, giving it an incredible power. Of course Deltarune glows brightly from your hope, because it's your dream. Your dream to play, Gaster's dream to create. That's what gives life to Deltarune. Your hope and willpower to make this dream come true. If Deltarune intended as a journey is our dream to play the game, and the vessel is the embodiment of our dream, then that means the vessel is made from our hope and determination to play Deltarune. This is seemingly even referenced by Spamton. In his Q&A, someone asked him about viruses, and Spamton mentioned removing viruses from your PC so you may never be afraid of hope again. This phrase is incredibly weird. Why would you be afraid of hope? Well, when the survey program released, it was detected as a virus on many PCs, to the point where Toby had to intervene and make a tutorial on how to bypass the Windows Defender. This text may be a clever reference to the vessel's creation, and of course, we should be afraid of hope because it fuels the vessel and makes it insanely powerful. With this in mind, let's take a look back at how the game was released. Gaster appears on Toby's Twitter account, and he tells us that he wants to create something new, but it is very, very far from complete. From the way he talks about it, it seems like a game. He then tells us that, in order to create this game, he needs our help. He's gonna give us some questions, and we'll use our answers to create it. Not long after, Toby quotes his tweets, seemingly confirming our assumption. What I'd like to make clear is that Toby wanted people to believe they were downloading not a game, but a survey to create a game in the future. This is exactly what everyone thought, and why the game was called, well, Survey Program. Everybody happily downloaded it and expected it to be a simple program to answer questions. But when you begin the game, Gaster appears as he promised, and just as he promised, he does begin asking you questions he needs to create the game. Except these— oh shit, I just noticed what he's talking about. Oh fuck. Except these questions aren't about a game at all. They're about a character. What is his favorite food? What your favorite blood type? What color does it like the most? Please give it a gift. How do you feel about your creation? It will not hear. Eventually, people get through the scene, the vessel is taken away from them, and you begin the story of Chris, Susie, and Ralsei, the three heroes, and the vessel is mysteriously saved in the files. I just got what the theory is about. You are literally creating the knights. Shortly after, a cryptic tweet appears on the Undertale account thanking us for our answers to the survey. But wait, didn't our vessel get discarded? Why are they thanking us for our responses? Now, I'd like you to think about this for a moment. Up until now, we've talked about how Gaster, for his game, prepared a vessel for us to inhabit, a lifeless, empty doll that we're meant to physically move around. But if that's the case, why would Gaster need our responses to make it? Genuinely, think about it. Why do we need to make the vessel? Why can't he do it himself? What is even the point of it having a favorite color or blood type in the context of Deltarune's story? It literally never comes up again. Take Undertale, for instance. In Undertale, whether you want the human to prefer butterscotch or cinnamon pie by playing as it, there is no need to imbue this information into it beforehand. And even more importantly, why does he say he needs our responses to create Deltarune? Deltarune is clearly being created without those responses, and if he meant that he wanted us to play as the vessel, then he needed our responses to make us play his game, not to create it. Even more weirdly, if the vessel was so important that it was essential to bring Deltarune to its creation, then why would Gaster never comment on the fact that the experiment he worked on for years was sabotaged? Why would there be a Chris Master in the Dark World? How would Gaster even have planned for the faceless demon to attend school and hang out with Susie? Why Susie? What I believe is going on here is a simple intended misconception. Gaster never said that our vessel was meant to contain us physically. It's meant to contain us spiritually. What you chose in this survey isn't important in itself. What's important is that you're choosing it out of your own volition to play the game. Everyone answered these questions expecting them to help Toby create a game in the future that they were going to play. Or, in the present, you answer them to play the game itself. Filling your vessel, the embodiment of your dream to actually play the game, with your hope to play, the same hope that makes Deltarune shine brightly, your will to play, your will to have more content, your will to keep going. Your own determination to play Deltarune flows in the vessel, and the roaring night releases that determination into the dark worlds to create Deltarune. Fuck. The vessel might actually be the night. Yeah, the vessel's probably the night. Oh, the vessel's absolutely the night. I really like that. Yeah, no, that's really good. That's really, 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 really good. That's super good. Fuck. The vessel makes total sense for being the night. Damn. That's some sick art, by the way. Oh yeah, hell yeah. Imagine if we fight against the vessel at the end of the game and they like throw attacks at you and their attacks are in your favorite color. Of course, Gaster needs your help to create Deltarune, so he takes your determination and puts it on the vessel to create Deltarune in the form of the Knights. That makes total sense. The reason for why the Knight is so powerful and the reason for why they would be like one of the biggest fights in the game is because he's not only filled with determination to create dark fountains, but he's filled with the determination of the angel, of the higher being above the light world. He is filled with our own determination to create Deltarune, which is why he's opening the fountains in the first place to continue the game, and why he's just not stopping. He will continue to open dark fountains for us to play, and the moment that we give up on playing the game, the roaring happens, because we've given up on actually continuing to play this fantasy that we made the vessel specifically to make at the very beginning of the game. That is perfect! That is amazing! The reason for why the vessel does this is because we want to continue playing the games. Therefore, the vessel will continue to make dark fountains as long as we want to continue playing the game. This is why it's a survey program. Gaster wasn't lying when he said he needed our responses to create Deltarune. Your responses create the vessel, and the vessel creates the journey itself through the Dark Worlds. It's the living embodiment of your dream to play the game, filled with your hope and determination to have more of it. That's why only the player can seal the fountains, because your own determination created them in the first place. That's why your player town expands as the night makes fountains. That's why it's described as a dream that grows with care. That's why your hope makes Deltarune proceed well. With this idea in mind, let's take a look at all the weird things about the night that confused us beforehand, and you'll start to notice how everything comes together perfectly. Jebel describes the night as a nightmare, awakening in the heroes' hearts. This choice of words is very interesting, especially considering Deltarune sometimes uses the Nightmare Night leitmotif, an old music that Toby Fox had composed for Cucumber Quest. In the context of the vessel, the double meaning is evident. It's called Nightmare Night because the night is the living and physical embodiment of a dream. And while this dream starts as a good one, it can become a nightmare if used in the wrong way. especially for Chris, who has to be your puppet for it to come true. Now, have you ever looked closely at how the night is referred to? Almost every single time it's brought up, people use it/its pronouns for it. Note that this is not what one would normally use when you don't know someone's gender. You'd use they/them. It's considered disrespectful or dehumanizing to call people an it at all times, unless it's the person's own choice to use those pronouns. Rather than a form of disrespect, however, it seems to me that the knight is specifically described in a way that's meant to make it seem alienated from the main characters, like it's something unique. King says that he can't be friends with Chris because your very existence goes against our own, because Chris is a Lightner. You'd expect him to, at the very least, have some mixed feelings about the knight. But instead, he doesn't just like the knight, he worships it, like it's a godlike entity from above any of them, both Lightners and Darkners. It becomes more evident with Queen, where she describes the knight using a hyperbole long hand, and then she claims it deigned to create the fountain. I had to look up this word because I genuinely have no clue what it meant, but apparently she means the knight is so important and above everyone else that this world is like a benevolent gift from above. Oh, like the angel. What makes this so unique is that the Queen is fully aware that any Lightner has the power to make fountains, so the knight isn't special in that regard, and yet she treats Lightners as slaves and the knight as a deity. Not only that, just like King, Queen worships the knight and seems obsessed with its greatness, putting it once again above anyone else, including Lightners. This later leads to Susie's description of the knight. As we can imagine, all of these weird godlike descriptions of her make her question if the knight is even a person, and not a deity or unique creature, which is why she says whatever they are instead of whoever they are. Anyway, guess who is the only main character in this game to use it/its pronouns? The vessel. The knight being created like its own unique thing makes perfect sense for the vessel, because it is its own thing. It's not a Lightner or a Darkner. It's a being created in the image of a godlike entity from a higher layer of reality, the angel. And on the matter, Deltarune wouldn't exactly be the first example of a spiritual vessel. This game has a lot of religious parallels. Do you know that human vessel is a repeated concept throughout religion? For someone willing to carry God's will, or embodying a particular quality. You may be more familiar with this concept under the name Avatar. In a game, an avatar is the character the player personalizes to play, but in some religions, and commonly in media, an avatar is the embodiment of a deity on Earth, often serving almost as a piece of the deity's entity, and power while maintaining its own identity. If you want a fun example in popular media, Moon Knight is the avatar of Khonshu, an Egyptian god, and he calls himself a knight, the Moon Knight, because he serves Khonshu's will. The vessel is your avatar. He is your knight. In a game, this simply would mean the personalizable character, but in the light world, since you're the angel, this concept takes on a religious imagery. That's fucking awesome! That's awesome! The knight is literally our knight. Of course, if the hero's end goal is to banish the angel's heaven, then the knight being the angel's avatar connects everything perfectly. We are the angel, they are our knights. That's exactly what the knight does. It carries your will and uses it to make fountains. This may be precisely why it's a knight in the first place. Knights serve their lords, and so does the vessel. A knight is a man who served this foreign or a lord as a mounted soldier in armor. And trust me, the connections are only just starting. In his shop, Spamton accidentally let something slip from his mouth regarding the night, saying it's connected to communion. Immediately after, he starts apologizing profusely to the air, looking almost terrified. In the past, people thought that maybe communion meant the physical Christian act that people do in church. But Japanese seems to debunk this, as communion is translated with something along the lines of contact. This means that when Spamton connects the night to communion, he's talking about communion as the spiritual connection between people, usually with God. This feels like a case where English is more specific than Japanese. Contact is a general connection with someone. Communion is a connection with someone that involves sharing or exchanging intimate thoughts and feelings on a mental or spiritual level. That's why it's often used in the context of deities. The act of praying in itself is a form of communion, as you're connecting with God and expressing your needs, your thanks, etc. Spamton mentions that he had a communion/contact with who we believe to be Gaster, and this transformed him into what he is nowadays. In this context, the reason behind the word is clear. Gaster exchanged truths, thoughts, and revelations about the reality Spamton lives in. And that deeply affected Spamton mentally and emotionally. Wanna know something crazy though? The start of the game is exactly this. It's a communion between us and Gaster, in the sense that the vessel creation is a survey, a literal set of questions. About what? Your favorite foods, the color you like, your hidden feelings, your thoughts. You're exchanging those things with him. You're literally having a communion with Gaster. And the result of it is the vessel, which is why the window is named Contact. In this context, Spamton connecting the night to communion and contact makes perfect sense, because the vessel was the literal result of communion. Fuck, this is good. Oh, fuck. Am I gonna become a Vessel Knighter? This makes way too much sense. This makes way too much sense. This also would explain why Spamton is scared of talking about the night. It's likely that he's being monitored by someone, either Gaster or the night itself. He cannot tell you about it for now, because if the cast learned the truth about the night, they'd also learn the truth about the experiment as a whole, and it wouldn't work anymore. He needs you to keep believing that you're saving the world from an evil bad guy. This would even give a more clear idea as to why the night is described as godlike, because it is godlike, in a literal sense. It is a piece of a deity. It may have even been referenced in Toby's imaginary intro for the game. People have pointed out how this is very, very similar to Jacob's dream in the Bible. He dreams of a staircase, and at the top of it is the entrance to heaven. And with angels on the stairs, God stands at the very top in front of the gates and looks down to him. If, as we mentioned, heaven is our world, then of course the night is in front of that symbolic white door. It's a piece of the angel, you, looking down from above like a living deity. Toby Fox describes the intro to Deltarune before it was scrapped as, "The best part would have been at the end when everyone is running up the staircase as the silhouettes of the bosses from all the chapters show up, and then the knight, standing in a white door at the top of the stairs, turns around and looks down at them." Regarding this, we also know that the knight is repeatedly tied to hands imagery. This seems kinda random normally, but in this context it makes a lot of sense. The knight is shaped in your own image, aka the image of a puppeteer moving Chris around by pressing keys on a keyboard. You are connected to hands, so the knight is too by consequence. The reason the vessel gets discarded in the first place, at least thematically speaking, is because we're talking of a fantasy RPG protagonist with powers and shit in a world that's not made to be an RPG, the light world. In a normal game, the software would let you create your character, but in the real world, nobody can choose who they are when they're born. You didn't choose if you wanted to be born with a specific look, or a specific favorite color, or food, or ability. It was outside of your control. That's why it's a goner. Judging by what Goner Kid says, goners are characterized by being out of place in the world. They're not meant to exist. The vessel getting removed from you is the reveal that the light world doesn't function like fantasy, but like reality. But, by direct consequence, it puts the vessel in a position where its existence is extremely tied to fantasy. Because there is a world where you can choose who you are when you're born, a world where you're always in control of everything. That world is fiction. It's the dark world. It's the opposite of the light world in this context. The Roaring Night being described as unique and different gains an even deeper imagery. It's like a literal piece of fiction taken and inserted in the real world. And from there, it begins expanding and slowly turning that real world into a fantasy RPG journey, like a virus. Overall, Vessel Knight makes everything fit together perfectly, especially with the Angel's Heaven in mind. But there's something we've been trying to avoid until now. What the hell is the deal with the roaring then? If the Knight makes worlds for you to consume, why would it want to destroy the world? Oh, we'll get there, trust me. But in order to get there, we need to take a step back and look into something else about the vessel. The very existence of this being means that you have two characters in the game. Chris, the yellow-skinned human you control who has a name you cannot choose, and Name, the vessel, the human for which you choose the name, but that you do not play as. Does that sound a little familiar? Like something you used to know? Like staring up at the ceiling? Anyway, if you feel that way, it's because this is the exact same thing that Undertale had. You had Frisk, the yellow-skinned human you control who has a name you cannot choose, and Name, Kara, the human for which you chose the name, but that you do not play as. Well, now, funnily enough, take a good look at these sprites. If you look at their shirts, you'll realize it's a parallel. Chris and the Vessel's shirts are Frisk and Kara's shirts inverted. Kinda how Deltarune is the letters of Undertale rearranged. Oh, so it's like in Undertale, you play as Frisk, and Kara is like the true character that you don't play as. But in Deltarune, you play as Kara technically, and the Vessel is like the Frisk kind of parallel that has less personality and like has a single purpose, which is to create the game. Ooh, I like that a lot actually. Before you worry, no, I'm not trying to say that Chris is literally Frisk or Kara is the Vessel. What I'm saying is that, if you remember from the first segment of this document, Kara was written as a concept bigger than themselves. They're called Kara from character, because they're your true RPG character and embody the essence of the underground as an RPG instead of a living world. Those kinds of mechanical sensations that can turn reward systems into work, and take away what makes the characters individuals and not sense of lines and numbers. Now remember what they say at the end of their monologue? Let us erase this pointless world and move on to the next. I believe that the Vessel is meant to be the true character of Deltarune, the same way Chris is the main character, like Frisk was in Undertale. This would mean that the Vessel, like Kara, carries the essence of the world you're playing in only as an RPG and software instead of a living world. Kara was all about progression. You defeat a boss, get a weapon, use it to kill a stronger boss, upgrade it, get stronger, repeat until there's no game left. That's exactly what the Knight is doing, progressing your game, upgrading Player Town, and making you stronger. every time a number increases, that feeling, that's me. Guess how your level increases in Deltarune? When you seal the Knight's Fountains. Heck, up until now we've been talking about this idea of your own character being empty/soulless and carrying your own determination to play the game. That's exactly what Kara does. Have you ever noticed just how many Kara parallels the Vessel creation has? The Japanese version uses the exact same UI. Your name is in Deltarune parallels my name is in Undertale's Kara flashback. Secret responses for naming the human like some of the characters like in Undertale when you name Kara. Game resets/crashes if you name the human Gaster like in Undertale. Unused vessel sequence that parallels what happens when you sleep in bed in Undertale and have the Kara flashback. There is even this very odd choice where the character limit for the player's name is 12, but for the vessel it's 9. The number Kara was associated with, and one of the typers used in the unused sequence is 999. The number 6 in repetition is used everywhere when it comes to Gaster. Just like how with Kara, 9 is also a repetitious number. It's implied that there is a layer of darkness beneath the ground from which the fountains are taken from. Jevil mentions this in his dialogue about the night, saying that hell's roar bubbles from the depths. In media and some religions, hell is seen as an underworld, a place beneath the earth's surface. This is most likely why Jevil connects it to hell. The background where you create the vessel is called depth. This would imply that the vessel is being born from the depths of darkness, or in other words, born from hell. That explains why Gaster is Satan, and would make the vessel a demon of some kind. A demon that comes when you call its name. Just like Kara. There would be even more evidence if one wanted to look deeper. But I don't want to focus on this for too long. The point is that it's really likely for the vessel to take the role of your true character in this game. Oh shit, I'm gonna interject this document a little bit and like add my immediate thoughts to this because it seems like it's going somewhere else right now. You know what I also just realized? Of course, Gaster would know how to make a vessel similar to Kara, because Gaster comes from the world where Kara exists. Gaster literally looked at Undertale the game and saw how it needed Kara as a playable character to be able to have this connection with you, the player. So Gaster literally saw what happened in Undertale with Kara and tried to replicate that as a scientist, like an experiment. He saw something that happened in nature, in Undertale, in his world, was fascinated by it, and thus created a vessel for you to name, just like how you named Kara in Undertale. The experiment made by Gaster is something that he wanted to replicate from Undertale. He saw the nature, the natural phenomena of Undertale, how it naturally called the player into its own world, and synthetically replicated it with the vessel in Deltarune to create Deltarune. That's He literally found a new world and made it into Undertale. He stole Kara's shit. Like Gaster saw what happened in Undertale with Kara and said, oh, so that's how you connect a player into a world. Okay, I'm gonna create a goner, I'm gonna create a vessel, and with this vessel, it will be able to connect to the player will name it, and with that I will gain determination to create Deltarune. That's why the vessel sequence exists at the very start of the game. He literally needed that to happen. He needed us to name the vessel in order to create the game. That's brilliant! He literally just stole Kara's entire deal because he's a scientist and wants to replicate it synthetically for the experiment. Oh, that's so cool! That's so cool! That's so cool! As I mentioned earlier, the biggest question remains the roaring. Why is the night called the Roaring Night? Why does it bring the roaring when you lose in the game over, but doesn't randomly stab the earth a couple of times during the day? Look at how Sham describes the roaring. But Jevil was just a taste of what you'll face from now on. You too will begin to realize the futility of your actions. At that time, feel free to come back here. I'll make you tea, and we can toast to the end of the world. Apparently, what caused Sham's depression was hearing Jevil's words about their reality. But Jevil doesn't talk very much about the roaring. His main thing is saying that everything is a game and everyone is unaware participants. This always made me feel like there must be some sort of connection between everyone being participants for a game and the roaring being so inevitable. Because think about it, why would the roaring be inevitable? If the knight is someone who doesn't actually want to bring it, and rather does it by mistake, either for escapism or because they don't know what the roaring actually does, then that seems very avoidable to me. Why would Chris, Susie, and Ralsei's actions at preventing it be completely futile no matter what? When was the last time this series had a plot point related to the Earth being destroyed? Kara in Undertale. At the end of the genocide route, Kara asks you to destroy the world because there is nothing left for you two in it. And from their soullessness, mechanical RPG character point of view, that makes the world pointless. It has no more use, because you can't play in it. A world with no purpose has to be erased. Originally, Toby tried making it so that Kara would straight up delete the game from your PC right then and there. In Deltarune, if everyone is a participant of the game, then what happens when the game ends? What happens when they run out of their own purpose? Well, they don't have one. The world stops having a purpose, and a pointless world has no reason to be kept alive anymore. That only happens in a game over, because the player refuses to continue. When you give up here, you're giving up on your determination to play the game. The same determination that fuels the knight to keep making worlds for the game to continue. You're basically communicating that you don't want to keep going. To the knight, to which the knight replies with, "Understood," then this world has nothing more left to offer. And it gets covered in darkness. In Deltarune's narrative, the limit of the game's content doesn't stand in the software itself, but in the dark worlds you get each time. From the perspective of pure RPG rules, darkness exists solely to assist lighteners. They're just items. So if a darkner were to stop assisting lighteners, it would have no reason to keep existing. Lighteners' purpose in the game, on the other hand, is to be characters accompanying the player's journey, with Chris as the main example. The knight itself has a purpose too. It exists to make fountains and bring the game forward. If the game was to end, it would have no reason to keep existing. It becomes a broken toy. In this view of things, everyone and everything has clear roles, objects with a purpose to follow, unable to choose who they are. And because they exist solely for this, their existence is meaningless outside of that role. In the same way, the world itself only serves a purpose as long as it can be used as a stage to make dark worlds an escape from reality. Once you stop playing in the game over, the game reaches an end. Therefore, this world stops having a reason to keep existing, and the roaring happens. But that's not all the game is to you. Ralsei is so much more than an object, whether or not he assists lighteners or doesn't. The game and its characters mean more to you than strings of lines and numbers to progress the game and consume content. You're emotionally attached to them. Chris is more than just a silent self-insert for you to control. Everyone is more than just the purpose they are here for. The reason you don't want the world to be destroyed after you stop playing isn't tied to some logical purpose. It's love. Something that can't be represented with numbers and rolls. This would lead to the final conflict of the game. Once you and Chris make amends, you and the Fun Gang are gonna try and find a way to put an end to the experiment by banishing our world away. As we mentioned, but for the night, this means not having a purpose anymore. It means the entire world not having one, which is why they will attempt to destroy it. The roaring is the embodiment of games and fiction solely for its mechanical existence on the surface, and your fight to stop it is the antithesis of that. You're fighting to prove that Ralsei is more than just the role that he was made for, that games can be more than the physical content they contain, and by that, and by consequence, the vessel itself could be more than what it was made to be, if it allowed itself to be. In short, I really like to see the roaring as paralleling the game's robotic existence as software following a script, and your attempt at stopping it as love, emotions, and all the kind of wonderful things in life that make Deltarune more than just its physical limitations and rules as a game. This would also explain why the Titans have the save icons on their faces. If the saves are born from your will to play the games and the roaring is born when you don't want to play the game anymore, that basically makes the Titans anti-save files. The roaring Titans and Angel's Heaven are all tied to the angel, you, just like the roaring knight is by being your avatar. Before we head into the final segment, I'd like to add one last thing about the knight. In Undertale's code, there is a text known as demon text, called this way because every variable for it is named demon. At first, the message was a warning from Toby.
Part of this game's charm is the mystery of how many options or secrets there are. If you're reading this, please don't post this message or this information anywhere, or doing secrets will become pointless. If you can find the in-game context for an asset, you can show it off. But if you can't, it probably means you haven't looked hard enough. Anything unused I'll probably post myself, later. Living in a world like this, where people can simply cheat out the answers from the code, your impatience has really damaged you, hasn't it?
Toby later clarified he doesn't have anything against data miners, but, as you can imagine, people did not listen, and the message was posted online. This is similar to the ABC file, and in general seems to tie to the game's narrative about how addictive the in-game rewards can become, to the point where you can't resist not looking for more hidden treasures in the code and sharing them. Not long after, the demon text was updated. If you open the code now, the message you'll find is the following. Greetings. You have made yourself completely clear. Understood. I, your humble servant, will follow you to the utmost. For long, people speculated that this could be foreshadowing about something about Deltarune, especially because one of the variables next to this message was randomly changed from Gaster to he is, and promptly removed in the following version. After everything we've talked about, it feels clear what that's about. Chapter 8. What is Deltarune trying to say? The final chapter. What the Roaring Knight feels to me, at its core, is an addiction to fantasy. The way it's described, the way they behave. Vessel Knight is beautiful because it's driven by your own will to escape from the dark world, from the real world. It carries your determination, your dreams, and releases it into dark worlds that fulfill all the characters' wishes. Each dark world could basically be its own standalone game, but the knight keeps making more. You finish a story only to start a new one. Again and again, you finish a world, increase your numbers, and move on to the next. If you remember, the word addiction is exactly the word we use to describe Kara in Undertale. Kara isn't just related to addiction, They are the addictive feeling itself, the feeling around the game's reward system which makes it addictive to consume it. You could have been satisfied with Pacifist, but if you want more of the game, those numbers have to go up. A lot is going on in the world today, from personal things like work and family in our daily lives to the global scale of threats. Games offer an escape from what's going on around you. They offer you a spark of hope, a positive reward when it seems like rewards in the real world are few and unreachable. Because it's satisfying to play, to kill enemies, to increase numbers, unlock new things, and take a break from reality. This is what truly connects you, Chris, Susie, and all of the Lighteners. You all have your issues, your fears, your fights against fate for control, and Deltarune gives you a break from all of that. This is why Deltarune focuses so much on your choices not mattering, because that lack of control is what we all escape from. That's what the night feels like to me. The vessel is, yes, your dream to play Deltarune, keeping numbers going and all that, but to Susie, it's her dream to not be scared of affection anymore, to not have to hide herself out of fear of being hurt, to be able to be herself and to have people who like her. To Noelle, it's a world which she can finally find the courage to say no and control things herself. Her entire life has been dictated by a fate against her will, and she feels powerless. But in the dark, we could do this for every character. Games can be meaningful for everyone, for a million of different reasons. Deltarune means something to everyone. Your wish to have an infinite game that always has new worlds and fun adventures comes from the same feelings these characters go through. Because once the chapter ends and you close your PC, you're back to real life. And only God knows how many Susie and Birdley are playing this game to this day. That's what is so interesting to Gaster, and what his study probably revolves around for the most part. He was a fictional character who became aware of his fiction, and is obsessed with understanding it ever since. An endless dream which is ultimately harming Chris, who in the meantime has probably been planning up something since the start to try to reach their own freedom, given Chapter 2's ending. In the context of this theory, I think Chris's fountain is an attempt at steering fate in their direction. So far, we've only been following the fate that the Knight and Gaster had meticulously prepared for us. And as both Sham and Jebel repeat, it seems that this fate is inevitably leading towards a horrible nightmare and the end of the world. In the weird route, it's already a nightmare for Chris. Determination is the power to reach dreams, but it's also described as the ability to change fate. I believe that's what fuels Chris's determination. An attempt at changing fate, going towards and getting rid of us, because it's clear that they learned a whole lot about the experiment beforehand. With the game's chess imagery in mind, think of it like the two knights in chess, fighting for opposite reasons. All those little things Chris did were because they have such little control that they can't waste any second. They stayed up at night to eat the pie, so that Toriel would have had to bake one the following day. And then they used that time to slash the car's tires, prompting Toriel to keep Susie safe and not letting her go home, thus trapping her and Chris in the house. Once they got exactly what they wanted, they used this perfect setup to lock everyone in our first ever dark world at night. Chris Knight is one of my most likely candidates after the vessel. But realistically, Chris would have no reason to make this crazy plan in that context. They could simply go to sleep again, take out the soul, and prepare a fountain for tomorrow. In this context, however, Chris knows that the Knight will make a fountain tomorrow, which is why they planned for their own dark world to happen overnight, before the Knights. If Kara in Undertale was all about increasing numbers until you can't anymore, until the cap and limit of what the world can offer in its content, the Knight is a little different. because Deltarune's world doesn't have a limit. Think about it. If you go to Snowden Town in Undertale, the characters already have pre-established limit of interactions. Once you've seen them all, that's it. You can increase love to try to get new interactions, sure, but eventually you'll run out of them. But in Deltarune, the limit doesn't stand in the game itself, but within each day. There's a limit to the things you can do in a day, but the following day you'll unlock more things. And while we know that eventually this will come to an end, since the game doesn't have infinite chapters, the characters don't know that. Hypothetically, you could stay here forever, day after day, world after world, adventure after adventure, an infinite carousel of entertainment that spins the world around over and over. One of Jello's obsessions is with the world spinning. His battle track is quite literally named the world revolving. But when we take a look into this concept in a less metaphorical way, what he's describing is just the passing of days. That's what the Roaring Night is doing. Every time you seal a fountain, there is another waiting for you the next day. As long as you haven't saved the world, the game doesn't end. So the world is in this endless state of danger that's really just an excuse to keep you playing. An adventure driven by the part of you that always wants more out of the game. And that crazy yet bittersweet scientist scattered throughout layers of reality who wants to understand what exactly connects us to fiction in such a powerful way. I believe what Deltarune is trying to do isn't just telling you that being overly addicted to games and fiction is bad, but it's asking, why? If the real world sucks and puts us out of control, why is it a bad thing to try to replace it with fictional worlds? If we could, hypothetically, live in fiction forever, why would that not be the best solution? Even better, what is the point of playing games and escaping the harshness of real life if eventually I have to turn off the screen? I won't spoil anything of it, but since we have mentioned it already, one of Undertale's inspirations, Moon Remix RPG Adventure, kind of did what we're talking about. Moon's themes are basically the exact same themes of Undertale, and the ending is, to say the least, very similar to what we're talking about here. Remember what we mentioned in the segment about freedom? The secret bosses are aware that they're fiction, and they wish to become real like Lightners and you, to become people. But isn't that ironic? The same world that Lightners want to escape from is freedom to a Darkner, and in the same way, the fantasy worlds we escape to are like prisons to the Darkners. If I can ask, what do you think the reason is? Why would this horrible place we live in be freedom to a fictional character? We talked about how scary our lack of control is, but how our choices often feel powerless in the big scheme of things. Why would Spamton want this? We escape to digital, imaginary worlds, where there's no such thing as your choices not mattering, because everything is tailored and prepared for you, even though in reality, you are not doing anything. The truth is, we say we often don't get to choose in reality, and how we lack control, but games don't really put you in control. You're following the script of a guy who chose how things were meant to go. You're not making anything. It's a bunch of pre-established codes on a screen, but it doesn't matter, because at the time you're making that choice, it feels real. When you talk with Ralsei and Lancer and you hear about their troubles, it feels real. The reason Darkners wish they could be real people like us is because that same unpredictability we escape from is what gives life meaning. In a game, your dream can't be crushed by something unexpected and out of control because everything is already written. Everything is made to go, be and stay the same way. Spamton can never be more than a puppet because the game has no reason for him to be. If you didn't have to fight to be who you are and to make your dreams come true, and if you didn't have to fail over and over, the dream itself would lose its meaning. Fiction is not unpredictable. It's written in a code, or prophecy in the game's terms, already telling who you have to be, do, and be forever, from start to finish. This is the beautiful and yet sad struggle Ralsei goes through. Ralsei is a role he has to play. He was born as an NPC in a town made for your own entertainment. He already knows exactly what will happen, how it's meant to happen, and who he has to be. And then he sees Susie being rude. There is no prophecy saying that she has to be rude. There is no code making her like this. She just likes being herself. She doesn't care what the game wants. She's used to kicking life in the butt to get what she wants. Had Ralsei the same freedom as her, would he even choose to be Ralsei? This is what the game's trying to tell you. Your choices don't always matter, but your ability to fight back against that is the most precious gift you have. This is what makes life beautiful. This is what makes us free. Our ability to fight back against fate. A character can't normally go against their code, and cutting Spamton's strings leads to him dying. But we don't have a code. And this is both amazing and really scary. This is why fiction can't replace our real lives forever. Because a world where everything is programmed and nothing unexpected can happen is just not living. It's a distraction, but it's not life. After a while, it would feel soulless and empty. Deltarune can't promise you things will always be alright. You will struggle. Fate will kick you in the butt. But you'll also have the power to fight back. The question remains how. How will you fight back? What can help you become ready? Well, maybe. Sometimes when life is hard, you just need something to give you hope. You need a fictional place to hide into where everything is exactly as it should be. And if you allow that piece of fiction to touch your heart and be more than a toy to consume and throw away, it can give you hope. It can give you determination. And it can give you a memory. A good experience. A fond memory to keep within you in your daily life. And help you get back up and face what's hurting you. How many times do you hear the phrase, "This piece of fiction helped me through a very dark time"? That's the true goal of games, and why we make them. From the knight's point of view, similarly to Flowey, entertainment only holds a physical value, a short-term enjoyment. You have fun playing, and then you reach your max level, close the screen and start another game, over and over. It's not about making good memories, it's about consuming. It becomes a world of worthless memories. It makes you feel soulless. That's what the roaring is. But games can be more than their short-term value. If instead of focusing on reaching the end and having to see everything, you just allow them to be a good experience, something to carry in your heart, then they will always be a part of you. Because everything you play will be with you, and it might just give you the strength you need to get back out there and fight, along with, who knows, other people you met thanks to that work of fiction. Friends, family, people who will be by your side when you need them the most. Fiction holds the power to connect you to others and help you bond. So many of the people I talk with every day are people I met because of Undertale. Susie and Chris will have to say goodbye to Lancer, Ralsei, and the others. The same way you'll have to say goodbye to both Darkners and Lightners at the end of the game. But if instead of always trying to get more, you stop to smell the roses and create a good memory, then they're not really going anywhere. They'll always be with you. Everything you're seeing, every single second you spend with the game, it can be a fragment of who you are in the real world. It can help you, even when you feel like your choices bring no results. The same way Lancer will always be a part of Susie as she grows up, even if physically speaking he is just a card. And although Chris doesn't understand you for now, I'm sure this feeling that connects all of you will eventually let you get closer if you allow it to. Your friendship with Chris, Susie, and Ralsei is more powerful than any amount of numbers and dark worlds the game could ever give you. You never meant to hurt Chris. And if you understand what the game is trying to tell you, then helping the heroes banish your world is not a bad thing. They'll always be with you, and your friendship will always exist. And thanks to you, these kids found friendship, family, and feel ready to start entering the scary adventure that is growing up together. It's why the weird route is so bad. Technically speaking, the ending is the same, and you'll get banished either way, but getting there while fighting against the characters who desperately try to end you in order to save their world completely changes your experience. Your focus shouldn't be to reach the end to begin with, but to create a happy memory and bond with the characters that can be with you forever. The vessel is filled with your dream to play the game, and nothing else. It's soulless. They don't want the game to end, and they destroy the world as soon as it has nothing physical left for you to see. But I believe the world can still be saved, even though it will mean destroying that dream and getting sent away, because you're giving up on more physical content for something much more important, something that can't be represented with numbers, something that can be with you forever, as long as you treasure all the wonderful and amazing things you're experiencing. Thoughts, theories, art, love. As long as you try to remember all of this, it will be with you. In other words, don't forget. Oh, that's really good. That's really, really good, man. That's a really good theory. Yeah, no, Wendy Doodles completely changed me over from Chris Snyder to, like, Vessel Snyder. That is a really good conclusion to the game, because no other single theory has actually filled me with hope for what a positive ending to Deltarune could possibly be. Every single theory ends up being very cynical, ends up being very, like, doomerish, saying that we're gonna end the world or stuff like that. This is the only theory about the game's purpose that actually fills me with hope and positive feelings about what is going to happen at the end. That's amazing. That makes total sense. And hell, that actually explains a lot of why the weird route is the way that it is. If we're gonna end up fighting the characters at the end of the weird route, wouldn't it make total sense for both the soul and the vessel to become one? And for us to fight against the characters as like the night itself? Like imagine the weird route ending the opposite way the normal route does. Imagine the final battle of Deltarune being you helping the heroes to defeat the night and seal heaven, but in the weird route, you and the vessel are working together to desperately prevent the heroes from closing the game. That's amazing, right? Because, like, at the end of the day, like, you're gonna have to finish the game either way. But if you do the weird route, you're going to be on the other side of the conflict. You're going to be against the heroes, and you're gonna be trying to force them to continue the game, even though they don't want you to. That's so good, though! Because, like, that is a perfect, like, idea of what the weird route is. Abusing the Lightners and forcing them, like, to do stuff that they don't want for your own enjoyment. You want them to proceed, you want them to continue. So, at the end of the weird route, you would use the Knight's body as your own, you would become the soulless vessel, you would become the Knight, and you would fight against the heroes. But in the normal route, you're helping the heroes stop the night and stop the roaring, you know? Either way the game is gonna end at some point. Like, that's so good though, right? That's great! Like, I'm imagining have any of you guys seen, like, Halo, I think ODST it was called? There's one of the Halo games in which you play as a squad of soldiers, and you're not Master Chief, you're just some random soldiers. And the final mission in that Halo game, I think it was Reach. Actually, yeah, I think it was Halo Reach. The final mission in that game is just survive for as long as possible against your enemies, right? But the game is meant to end at some point. So eventually that final battle against the entirety of the enemy forces is an impossible objective to complete. The enemies will just keep coming over and over and over again until you die at the end of the game. Yeah, that's Reach. I fully believe that the weird route will be something like that. You will continue fighting for as long as you can to continue the game, to continue Deltarune, to continue getting more chapters and more content, but eventually the heroes are going to defeat you, and they're going to close the connection, and they're going to close the game, so you won't be able to continue. And then they will just banish you from the world because they hate you and you have like damaged their lives. But in the normal, a task impossible to complete, yeah, exactly, Leslie. But in the normal routes, you will make friendships and connections, and you will understand the POV of like the point of view of the characters, and so you will help them close the connection and like destroy the vessel and destroy the knights, so that the connection can finally be closed properly. That would be beautiful, man! That is such a good idea for an ending. That is so good! Yeah, no, Wendy Doodles completely changed me over to, like, a Vessel Knighter. I never found, like... Whenever I've heard theories about the Knights, I never found it satisfactory for them to be like, oh, it's the mayor, or like, ooh, no, it's Alvin, or like, ooh, no, it's like Gerson back from the dead. It's like, I never understood the purpose of those theories. I never liked any of those theories, because it means that Gaster just chose a random townsperson in hometown to be the knight. Like, the knight very obviously is doing things in accordance to Gaster's own plan, right? So it'd be kind of hollow for it to be just a random character in hometown. So that's why I was always so adamant that it had to be Chris, because Chris very obviously is connected to Gaster in some way. I mean, Gaster chose Chris as the vessel from which we actually played Deltarune, right? But if it's the vessel, the actual vessel we create at the start of the game, that we fill with our own determination, that it then uses to create the fountains, that is the perfect purpose for the vessel at the start. It's great. It's amazing. Ah, that's so good. Yeah, no, Wendy Doodles absolutely knocked that out of the park with this one. I adore this theory. If this ends up being the ending of Deltarune, I will be thoroughly fucking satisfied with the game. I don't care if I'm wrong that Chris is not the knight. I will be thoroughly satisfied with this version of the story. This seems like a purpose that Toby Fox would want to come to fruition, you know? That is so good! Blue Mask says, I mean, the vessel is guaranteed to come back in some way. Yes, initially I was thinking maybe Chris, as the knight, will try to rip us out of their body permanently, and so we will have to use the vessel as like a backup plan to be able to continue playing the game without Chris. But this makes just as much sense, if not more, you know? Because, like, I was thinking, if Chris was the knight, at some point they would want to continue making Dark Worlds and continue to enjoy the game without us. And so we would be discarded, and that would go against, like, Gaster's plans and stuff, you know? Like, it would break the script. But in this way, it works just as well, because it's the vessel, like, the vessel's, like, determination is our determination to continue playing Deltarune. It's like, it makes so much more sense within the narrative, you know? If it's either, it has to be either Chris or the vessel, or maybe both. Either way, I would be completely fucking happy. I love it. I absolutely adore it. Let's finish this up. Let's finish this stream with... Thanks for reading. We made it! If you survived all the way through here, you're a nerd, and that's awesome. Thank you for reading. And never feel bad about being emotional and feeling games and stories are more than just that. because that's the best a story can inspire for. I didn't expect this document to end up being so long, but to be honest, it's less than half of the original, so I'd say I did a better job this time. Hell yeah, you did! Feel free to message me for anything. I don't know if when I'll answer, but I'll try to do as soon as I have time. Aww. This is awesome. Anyway, I've talked enough. Now I will sleep for another 100 years. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this community. The point of theorizing isn't to really predict the game as much as it is to share our love for it together. And we do that a lot. So I hope that you enjoyed it. Don't be a hero, experience the love. And to conclude this, here is an excerpt from Toby Fox himself. Hi everyone, this is Toby Fox. Recently, the world has kind of been in crisis, hasn't it? Due to coronavirus, everyone is stuck inside. Sometimes it feels like the world might end. At times like this, it might be easy to think something like, why the heck am I even making games? Why would the world need something like games at all? At a time like this. But please don't be discouraged, because times like these are when people need laughter. They need smiles. They need happiness. When the sky gets dark, they need something. Just a little something to shine on them and light their path. I'm not going to say games can save the world or anything like that, but you can save someone's day. And when times are tough, just one more day of smiles can make a huge difference. But what's so special about indie games? That is heart. When people make games, they put their hearts into the game, the creator's individuality, the creator's dream, the memory that the creator couldn't forget, the nightmare that the creator wanted to forget, the creator's love, that is the creator's heart. And the special thing about indies is, because our teams are small, the player can feel the heart of each person who made the game. And that increases the chances that the player's heart will match the creator's. When a player whose heart matches the creator's, something strange happens. The game screen flashes like a cursed mirror. The player's heart begins to shine. That player will be changed forever. That player will be changed forever. And they may receive an incredible amount of hope from playing your game. That is the power of indie games. And I'm speaking from experience, indie games have set my heart ashine before. Cave Story, Yume Nikki, and of course, Sun Sands Touhou series. That's right, thanks to that game full of strange girls wearing hats, thanks to beautiful bullet patterns, thanks to Japanese-styled energetic music, it shined, diving into the holy lights. My body evolved, and I became a game designer. I too was made into a monster, and hopefully I will inflict others with the same curse, while making people smile at the same time. Well, I got a little off track in there, but the point is, if you make games, you can either give people hope or make them into terrible monsters like me. I think that's pretty good. No matter what's going on, when the world is in crisis, don't give up. No, if it gets dark, shine. Game creators, game players, everyone, do your best. Thank you, by the way. Don't overdo it. Humans have a limit too. And we are humans. Well, at least most of you in the audience, besides this dog. Toby Fox. Oh. 3 days left, everyone. 3 days left. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? Bye-bye.